Bleach. Studying medicine can't save the spirit world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 776. Enemies at the Shining Spiritual Academy. If he had not been pushed to the limit, or if he had not been furious, how could the retired former captain Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni release his Bankai that would have affected a wide range of people? The main force of the Invisible Empire is at the Shining Academy of Spiritual Arts. The target is likely to be the former captain Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni. Seireitei, who was at the Wartime Command Center, also realized the seriousness of the problem in an instant. Her face turned pale, and she said in a hurry, "Notice to all captains. The enemy is at the Shining Academy of Spiritual Arts." Captains who have dealt with various opponents rush to the Shining Academy of Spiritual Arts for support immediately. Upon hearing this, Izanagi used the highest authority to capture all the captain-level Shinigami in the Seireitei without hesitation, and issued this emergency order. However, at this moment, many captains were taking back their Bankai to fight back against the Holy Cross Knights, and they were all fighting in a group. Even if many captains wanted to withdraw and go to the Shining Academy of Spiritual Arts for support, they would not be able to quickly deal with their opponents in a short time. Go back a little. In the Seireitei, the Gotti 13 was at an absolute disadvantage, and even appeared to be on the verge of collapse at any time. Due to historical reasons, in order to avoid the fierce opposition of the aristocracy, and to be able to recruit a large number of Rukongei residents to study at the Shining Academy of Spiritual Arts. Therefore, the location of the Shining Academy of Spiritual Arts is independent of the Seireitei, located in a large area between the southern part of the Seireitei and Rukongei. In the Dean's Courtyard of the Shining Academy of Spiritual Arts, in addition to Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni, Kamraku Shunsui, Yukita Jashiro, Komamura Sejin, and Suzucho Jiro all gathered here. In addition, in the face of such a crisis in the Seireitei, the entire Shining Academy of Spiritual Arts was arranged to take refuge underground in advance, and some teachers who still had combat capabilities also formed a temporary organization, ready to went to the Seireitei for support at any time. 2 years after leaving the Gotti 13, Kamraku Shunsui looked even more decadent, with sunken eyes. At this moment, Kaku Shunsui was constantly flipping through the information reported by the teachers who approached the Seireitei to inquire about the battle situation, and he seemed to be a little angry. It's not good. The Gotti 13 is already in a comprehensive disadvantage. What are Captain Unohana and Senju Makoto doing? Why is there such an outrageous thing of Bankai being taken away on such a large scale? Facing Kaku Shunsui's words that revealed deep dissatisfaction, Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni, who was sitting in the center of the courtyard with a kind and peaceful face, was still fishing unmoved, as if he had no intention of expressing any opinions. Compared with 2 years ago, Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni's whole body seemed to be much older and hunched. If it weren't for the 2 hideous scars on his forehead, at first glance, you couldn't even feel the slightest momentum on Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni's body, as if he was just an ordinary old man. On the other side, Yukita Jashiro, who was playing chess with Komamura Sejin, coughed from time to time and comforted Kaku Shunsui. Ahem, Shunsui, who knows what Captain Unohana and Vice Captain Senju might have in store? Since we have all resigned from the Gotti 13, we should give the current captains the trust they deserve. Perhaps because he used the power of the Soul King's right hand 2 years ago, even after 2 years of recuperation, Yukita Jashiro still has not recovered his former gentle appearance, and his appearance is quite skinny. However, after no longer having to bear the responsibility of captaining, Yukita Jashiro's spirit is obviously much better than before, and even his face has a rare bit of color. Yukita, if the situation continues to deteriorate, I'm afraid the entire battle will be completely defeated, and the real enemy, Ithwatch, has not yet appeared. Kaku Shunsui continued to comment with an angry attitude. I didn't expect that in just 2 years, the Gotti 13 has fallen to this point, being forced to this extent by a lost dog from 1,000 years ago. Yukita Jashiro frowned slightly when he heard this. Kaku Shunsui's words were undoubtedly quite explicit, and he couldn't help but remind him. Hirasui, your mentality is a bit messy. In the past 2 years, Yukita Jashiro has always been aware of Kaku Shunsui's situation and has always been quite worried. If Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni, Yukita Jashiro, Komamura Sejin and Suzucho Jiro had no regret about leaving the Gotti 13, and quickly adapted to the leisurely life of training newcomers at the Mao Spiritual Academy. Then Kikuchansui was depressed every day, and most of the time he drank to relieve his sorrow. Joshiro thought that Kikuchansui just couldn't accept the reality of losing his power and captain status for a while, and he would be able to fully recover after a while. However, facing Joshiro's reminder, Kikuchansui retorted without hesitation. It's not that I have a problem with my mentality, but that Unohana has gone too far. Look at the changes in the Seireitei over the past 2 years. Instead of restoring the central 46 chambers system, it has been constantly weakening the status of the nobles. Shouldn't you be very clear about this, Our family has obviously declined to what extent in the past 2 years? Does the Gotti 13, which is completely separated from the nobles that have been passed down for countless years, really have the power to protect the Seireitei? It is precisely because of Unohana vulgar vision that comes from Cheng-ge that the Gotti 13 still seems so vulnerable even if there is no vacancy for the captain. Obviously, rather than speaking to Joshiro, it would be better to say that Kikuchansui deliberately spoke to Yamamoto Janrakusai Shichikuni. Yamamoto Janrakusai Shichikuni slightly turned sideways to look at Kikuchansui, and his expression was still so kind and peaceful. Shansui, every new period or era must go through a short period of pain. When I founded the Gotti 13, the number of corpses that became obstacles was also countless. After a pause, Yamamoto Janrakusai Shichikuni continued. Since you have already given up your position, there is no need to worry unnecessarily. Trust the current Gotti 13 and provide help when necessary. That's enough. Teacher, this is totally not the same concept. Kikuchansui argued back. Unohana is a female beast from Cheng-ge, and Senju Cheng is an immature lieutenant who doesn't know what balance is. They simply don't have enough ability to control the Gotti 13 and shoulder the mission of protecting the Seireitei. Chapter 777a. Gift for the captain. The atmosphere in the courtyard was somewhat stagnant for a while. Yamamoto Janrakusai Shichikuni frowned slightly and stared at Kikuchansui. The remaining majesty of 1,000 years made Kikuchansui's heart tighten subconsciously and took a step back. This scene made Yamamoto Janrakusai Shichikuni sigh in his heart. As the other party's teacher for nearly 1,000 years, Yamamoto Janrakusai Shichikuni naturally knew about Kikuchansui's thoughts. Perhaps Kikuchansui looked casual and dissolute at ordinary times, but in fact he was quite proud in his heart. He had been the captain for many years and was the direct disciple of the captain general, which made Kikuchansui subconsciously think about the captain general. However, after the lock knot and the soul sleep were broken, Kikuchansui's situation was undoubtedly a sudden fall from the clouds to the mud. This fall, but it took Kikuchansui 2 years to get out of it. There is no doubt that Kikuchansui, who was unwilling to give up, wanted to fight. And Kikuchansui was keenly aware that this crisis from the Invisible Empire was a great opportunity. However, since Kikuchansui's own power of the God of Death had dissipated by more than half, the only hope was placed on Yamamoto Janrakusai Shichikuni, hoping that Yamamoto Janrakusai Shichikuni would become the captain again. As long as Yamamoto Janrakusai Shichikuni defeated Yukwatch again like he did in the Millennium, and rescued the Seireitei from the predicament of Unohana, then, Kikuchansui could once again return to the power hub of the Gotti 13. After a moment, Yamamoto Janrakusai Shichikuni spoke faintly. Hirasui, you can't. Kikuchansui's face changed obviously when he heard this, and he was anxious and angry. However, Yamamoto Janrakusai Shichikuni knew very well, compared with Senju Cheng, the gap between Kikuchansui and Senju Cheng was obvious to the naked eye. It was not just a simple difference in combat power, but also a difference in vision. Kikuchansui has a high IQ, but as a minor noble, after accumulating nearly 1,000 years of experience, he not only failed to see things from a higher perspective, but was completely trapped in the perspective of the nobles. Now, after experiencing a heavy blow, Kikuchansui's mentality has become more and more problematic, and his mind seems to be full of petty means of fighting for power and profit. Me? No. Kikuchansui said angrily. Teacher, how am I not as good as Unohana? How am I not as good as Senju Cheng? Seeing that Kikuchansui was about to clash with Yamamoto Janrakusai Shichikuni head-on, Joshiro quickly stood up in front of Kikuchansui and tried his best to speak to ease the atmosphere. Kikuchansui took a few deep breaths and realized that he should not clash with Yamamoto Janrakusai Shichikuni anyway, so he simply left without saying a word and walked out of the courtyard. In this regard, Yukitichushiro's eyes could not help but reveal a little helplessness, and he could not understand why Kakushansui could still have an internal conflict at this moment, and was willing to sacrifice his own combat power to fight for power. Then, Yukitichushiro turned to look at Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni, who showed a trace of disappointment in his eyes, and comforted him. Teacher, don't blame Shansui, maybe Shansui just didn't think it through for a while. Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni sighed and was about to say something. This old man, boom. There was a sudden explosion in the direction of the courtyard gate, and then a spirit spear streaked like a meteor, and then nailed to the wall behind Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni and others. Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni, Yukitichushiro, Komamura Sejin and Suzuchojiro all turned their heads suddenly and looked at the spirit spear, and their pupils shrank. Kakushansui, who had just left the courtyard, was pinned to the spirit spear, his chest completely pierced, and the only light left in his eyes quickly dissipated after he looked at Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni. Suddenly, Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni, who had been like an old man fishing, burst into a dignified aura, holding the cane that seemed to be placed beside him. Shikai. Raijin Jaka. A scorching flame slashed across the spirit spear, and Kakushansui, who was pinned to the wall, was released. Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni hugged Kakushansui with one hand, feeling the warm body of Kakushansui, who was already lifeless, and felt an indescribable anger rising in his heart. Who is it? Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni raised his eyebrows and shouted angrily towards the entrance of the courtyard. Yukitichushiro, Komamura Sejin, and Suzuchojiro, who were a little slow to react, also quickly drew their zanpakutōs and stood guard on both sides of Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni, looking vigilantly at the direction of the courtyard entrance. The next moment, the courtyard building that blocked the sight of Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni and others suddenly exploded and turned into a white field. Then, three figures appeared at the location of the original courtyard building. The leader was none other than Yuthwach. In addition, standing behind Yuthwach, in addition to Haskvalth, there was also a girl wearing a short-skirt military uniform and long hair that reached her waist, the holy letter E Bambaya Tabastabin. And Yuthwach said with a hint of sarcasm at the corner of his mouth, facing Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni's staring eyes. Yamamoto, was that your disciple whom you have taught for thousands of years? He was so weak, a little too pitiful. Yuthwach. Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni put down Kakushansui's body, held Raijin Jaka tightly in his hand, and said angrily with extremely hot flames rising from his body. How dare you really appear in front of me? Are you here to let me complete what I didn't finish 1,000 years ago and put an end to your life completely? You're old, Yamamoto Shichikuni. You have voluntarily retired and hid outside the Seireitei. Can you still hold your zanpakutō tightly? Yuthwach asked playfully. Try it and you will know. Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni said murderously. Not enough. Yuthwach said. What's not enough? Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni asked. My anger and hatred over the past 1,000 years are far more than this, Yamamoto. Your anger and hatred are not enough. At this point, Yuthwach paused and spoke again. So, Bombi, where is the gift for the former captain? Yes, your majesty. Bombita grinned and snapped her fingers. Snap. The crisp snapping sound instantly reminded Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni of something, and she shouted subconsciously. Stop. However, a shocking explosion suddenly occurred in the direction of the area where the students of the Shinigami Academy of Spiritual Arts had taken refuge, almost completely covering up Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni's voice. The next moment, the extreme temperature exploded with Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni as the center. Bankai Zankadachi. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 778. The Battle of the Millennium Enemies. Bankai Zankadachi. The extreme heat was condensed in the tiny blade. That was the temperature of the core of the sun, that was 15 million degrees Celsius. Almost at the moment when Zankadachi appeared, the surrounding temperature was visibly distorted. The moisture in the atmosphere was evaporated, and the flowers, plants and trees within a radius of 10 miles quickly withered and turned yellow. The closer to Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni, the drier and cracked the ground became. Even at the foot of Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni, magma had already appeared. The holy lettery, Bambayata, who possessed the ability called critical hit, looked at this scene and said with some shining eyes, "Wow! Is this the strongest death god in the legend? What an incredible power!" Then, Bambayata took out the star seal from his arms without hesitation and pointed it at Yamamoto Shinraisai Shichikuni, and said excitedly, "If this temperature is used in my blast, it would be great." However, Yamamoto Shinraisai Shichikuni, who was targeted by the star seal, did not react at all. Instead, he swept the Kanhotachi in his hand, and a terrifying torrent of flames swept towards Yuthwach, Haskvald and Bambayata. Swoosh! Swoosh! Haskvald and Bambayata almost subconsciously jumped into the sky to avoid the terrifying flames that burned everything in their path. "What's going on? Why doesn't the star seal work?" Bambayata said in disbelief. Upon hearing this, Yamamoto Shinraisai Shichikuni opened his slender eyes slightly and glanced at Bambayata in the sky. The awe-inspiring power frightened Bambayata so much that she subconsciously avoided Yamamoto Shinraisai Shichikuni's sight. HMPH, just a little trick. Yamamoto Shinraisai Shichikuni snorted coldly, and looked back at Yuthwach holding the Queen's crossblade. As early as 2 days ago, after developing the shadow invasion drug, Senju Cheng secretly visited Yamamoto Shinraisai Shichikuni, handed a shadow invasion drug to Yamamoto Shinraisai Shichikuni, and generally informed him of the plan to deal with the Invisible Empire, so that Yamamoto Shinraisai Shichikuni could sit in the Shinen Spiritual Academy at ease. Moreover, this also allowed Yamamoto Shinraisai Shichikuni to choose the time to join the war when necessary. Bark, I will make you understand that appearing here will be the thing you regret most in your life. As Yamamoto Shinraisai Shichikuni finished speaking, under the extreme temperature emitted by the Zanpakutō, Yukita Jashiro, Komamura Sajin and Suzuchojiro had to move away from Yamamoto Shinraisai Shichikuni and head towards Haskvald and Bambayata. At this moment, the entire Mao Academy of Spiritual Arts turned into 3 battlefields. Komamura Sajin against Bambayata, Yukita Jashiro and Suzuchojiro teamed up to fight Haskvald, and Yamamoto Shinraisai Shichikuni against Yuhabok. At the same time, the Akawa Gate located in the south of the Seireitei. The gate guards responsible for guarding the Akawa Gate were trying their best to open this gate made of murderous stone. And almost at the moment the Akawa Gate opened, Senju Cheng, who turned into a residual shadow, passed through the gap in the gate and disappeared in front of the gate in an instant. Cut off the spirits. Cut off the spiritual pressure. The walls, gates and soul-blocking membranes made of murderous stones are important barriers to protect the Seireitei, and also isolate the Seireitei from the inside and outside of Rukongei. That is why, whether it is Senju Cheng or Captain Zaraki, they cannot monitor the Mao Academy outside the Seireitei at any time even if they are inside the Seireitei. More importantly, all the Shinigami neglected the defense of the Mao Academy. In other words, compared to the interior of the Seireitei, the Mao Academy itself is not an important facility. The real value of the Mao Academy lies in the policy of cultivating Rukongei souls to become Shinigami. Therefore, even if the buildings of the Mao Academy are destroyed, it does not make much sense. Even if all the students of the Mao Academy are slaughtered, the 6-year new blood gap will not form a generational gap for the long lifespan of Shinigami. So, Yuthwach's target is Yamamoto Shinraisai Shichikuni. After making a quick judgment, Senju Cheng quickly raised his head again, and rushed towards the direction of the Shinen Academy of Spiritual Arts like a meteor across the sky. Without the barrier of the murderous stone, the spiritual pressure from the direction of the Shinen Academy of Spiritual Arts and the images reflected by the spiritual control appeared in Senju Cheng's mind. In less than a moment of fighting, Komamura Sajin, who was fighting against Bambayata, was bombarded by Bambayata's series of explosive attacks and was almost unable to maintain his Bankai. His body was bleeding profusely, and he persisted only with willpower. As for the battle between Haskvald and Yukita Jashiro and Suzuchojiro, Haskvald obviously did not try his best. He was just dealing with it in a leisurely manner, and focused most of his energy on the battle between Yuthwach and Yamamoto Shinraisai Shichikuni. At this moment, the battle between Yamamoto Shinraisai Shichikuni and Yuthwach is that Yamamoto Shinraisai Shichikuni, who is at full strength, is suppressing Yuthwach tightly. The 2 years of retirement have not weakened Yamamoto Shinraisai Shichikuni's combat power, but have made him more mellow. It is for this reason that Yukita Jashiro and Suzuchojiro, knowing that there is a gap in combat power between them and Haskvald, are still trying their best to contain Haskvald to prevent Haskvald from interfering with Yamamoto Shinraisai Shichikuni's battle. These scenes are reflected in Senju Makoto's mind, and Senju Makoto subconsciously breathes a sigh of relief. Senju Makoto undoubtedly still retains some respect for Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni in his heart. Even Senju Makoto can become a god of death by studying at the Shinigami Spiritual Academy, and Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni, as the founder, is also invisibly grateful to him. No. Senju Makoto, who was slightly relaxed, suddenly realized the weirdness. As an old enemy from 1,000 years ago, with Youthwatch's understanding of Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni, it is impossible that he would deliberately show up to be beaten by Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni. Therefore, Youthwatch definitely has enough backhands and trump cards to deal with Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni. With this thought, Senju Makoto did not hesitate at all, and took the initiative to release the ability of Senro Onksayang. With the terrifying power of the Zanpakutō, it is naturally difficult for Senju Makoto to get close to Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni by controlling the grass and trees at a distance in the state of Seireitei. However, in addition to providing medical support for the crumbling Komamura Saiyujin, Senju Makoto's purpose is more importantly to announce his arrival and force Youthwatch to abandon the plan or reveal a flaw. After all, Senju Makoto knows that Youthwatch has listed him as one of the 5 special combat powers, which means that even based on the information on the surface, Youthwatch is also afraid of him to a certain extent. Chapter 779 Falsehood and Fakeness. It seemed that the large area of grass created by Senju Makoto's zanpakutō had caused Youthwatch to be stunned for a moment. Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni sees this momentary flaw. Zanpakutō North Heaven and Earth Ashes. It was the ultimate slashing and burning of everything with a temperature comparable to the core of the sun. The ultimate intention released by this sword completely overwhelmed Youthwatch. The winner was decided. As Youthwatch's figure completely turned into white bones, even his bones were instantly burned to ashes. Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni, who was holding the zanpakutō, saw this, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. However, Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni looked at the only ashes left at Youthwatch's position, which were also scattered without a trace as a gust of hot wind blew over. Youthwatch, it seems that sleeping for 1,000 years did not make you stronger, but made your body no longer adaptable to fighting. Then, Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni turned around and hurried towards the body of Kikusansui. Staring at Kikusansui's face, Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni's eyes flashed with deep sadness. For Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni, who had no children in his life, the closest people in the past 1,000 years were only his 2 direct disciples and Suzuki Chojiro. Now with the death of Kikusansui, even Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni, who had seen countless lives and deaths, felt extremely uncomfortable. Every bit of getting along in the 1,000 years, Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni scattered the remaining sun-prisoned clothes on his body, half-knelt beside Kikusansui, and even put down the zanpakutō in his hand, holding Kikusansui's body in his arms with both hands, trying to feel the last warmth of Kikusansui. Shansui, wait for a while in hell. I will take a look at everything in the Seireitei. Maybe we can meet again in hell. Puff. The sound of a sharp blade piercing through the body instantly froze Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni's sad expression, and Kikusansui in his arms also opened his eyes. Kikusansui spoke calmly. The only one who will go to hell is you. Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni was slightly stunned, and his expression instantly became furious, and then he reacted. You are not Shansui. Of course, I am Lloyd of the Holy Cross Knights Y under His Majesty Youthwatch, and I am taking it away on His Majesty's order. But before Lloyd could finish his words, Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni, who was originally holding Lloyd's shoulders and waist, suddenly exerted force with his palms, and an unimaginable terrifying force came, causing Lloyd to be lifted up before he could react at all. Then, Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni punched Lloyd's waist with both fists at the same time. Both bones. Bang. The terrifying impact exploded at Lloyd's waist, almost instantly smashing Lloyd's entire chest, and Lloyd flew out like a piece of rag. However, just as the extremely angry Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni was about to kill Lloyd in one fell swoop, a shadow came from behind. Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni glanced at the corner of his eye and saw that it was Youthwatch who was supposed to be dead. How is it possible? Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni's mind flashed this thought, but at this moment he did not have a zanpakutō in his hand, and was about to turn around and use Hakuto to delay and resist. The severe pain caused by the pierced part of his abdomen suddenly exploded at this moment, causing Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni's internal organs to tremble with pain, and the whole person was briefly frozen in place. This short moment was enough to be fatal. For Yuthwatch, who was standing behind Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni and swinging his sword, it was enough to take the life of Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni, who had let go of his zanpakutō and was seriously injured. The lives of the twin brothers Lloyd and Lloyd, who both possessed the power of the sacred letter Y, have already destined their victory at this moment. Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni, farewell. Almost at the same time as Yuthwatch's voice fell, the raised cross-sword of extinction slashed towards Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni. However, what Yuthwatch did not notice was that, when Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni put down his zanpakutō, the surrounding environment was no longer in extreme lava. The ubiquitous green grass seemed to have spread to Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni's feet quietly in advance as if it had been expected. In an instant, huge trees rose up under Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni's feet, forming a wooden wall in front of Yuthwatch. However, the wooden wall was almost unable to form any obstacles in front of Yuthwatch's Kyan, and continued to cut down in the direction of Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni. However, the momentary visual obstruction was enough to make Yuthwatch fail to notice that several green grasses were wrapped around Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni's waist at the same time, pulling Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni's body to one side. A slight deviation caused the chopped kind to fall on Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni's shoulder, and a small part of his body and right hand were instantly cut off. Blood splattered. However, a hint of surprise and anger flashed in Yuthwatch's eyes. Not dead. This fatal blow finally allowed Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni to escape. From the part cut off at the shoulder, one could even vaguely see the lungs in the chest cavity. This injury was not fatal. The next moment, Yuthwatch did not even bother to put away the cross-sword of extinction. He raised his left hand and aimed at Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni. His fingers instantly released dozens of small sacred extinction arrows with power comparable to Flash's King Void, which swarmed towards Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni. Multiple sacred extinction arrows. The green grass around Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni seemed to riot. While rolling Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni away from Yuthwatch, countless green grasses quickly expanded into giant trees to block the sacred extinction arrows. However, the power of the seemingly insignificant sacred extinction arrows was extremely terrifying, and it was completely different from the spirit arrows released by ordinary quincies. Even though that giant trees were growing wildly, they were destroyed by the holy extinction arrows. However, the giant trees did hinder the holy extinction arrows a little, allowing the green grass that was carrying Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni to fly into the sky, successfully avoiding this fatal pursuit. However, no matter how fast the green grass was carrying Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni, it was still far inferior to Yuthwatch, the king of the Quincy. Almost as soon as Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni took off, the shadow created by Yuthwatch appeared above Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni, and once again slashed at Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni's head. But, dang! Senju Cheng stood in front of Yuthwatch, and the all-seeing in his hand firmly resisted the Quincy crossblade. Chapter 780. Yuthwatch's purpose caught up. The collision between Makoto Senju and Yuthwatch made Joshiro and others who were trying to rescue him beside the battlefield breathe a sigh of relief. The spiritual pressure between Makoto Senju and Yuthwatch also kept colliding in this close area, and even dyed the worlds on both sides into different colors with the collision point of the crossblade of extinction and the all-seeing as the center. ZZZZ. Or maybe the collision between the spiritual pressures was too intense, forming almost materialized lightning. Bang! In the end, in the somewhat incredible eyes of Yuthwatch, the crossblade of extinction that he was holding was actually bounced away. This guy. Yuthwatch's expression revealed a bit of horror, and his dark eyes clearly reflected the gentle Makoto Senju in front of him. However, Yuthwatch's expression turned fierce in the next moment. At the moment when the crossblade of extinction was bounced away, his left hand grasped the void, and a sacred arrow of extinction almost as tall as a person appeared in Yuthwatch's hand. And there was no need for the bow to provide the initial velocity. The sacred arrow of destruction shot at Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni behind Senju Makoto with lightning speed. At this moment, Senju Makoto's movements were just in the state of residual strength, and it seemed that he did not have enough time to block the sacred arrow of destruction with his sword. Bankai! Maureen no Kabuto. Suddenly, a huge wooden palm that seemed to cover the sky of the sun appeared behind Senju Makoto. Boom! The sacred arrow of destruction hit the wooden giant palm, and directly blasted it into countless wood chips. However, in less than a moment, not only did the wooden giant palm recover as before, but even a supergiant wooden Buddha quickly formed behind Senju Makoto. Senju Cheng and Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni were protected by the wooden Buddha above their heads, forcibly separating them from Ithwatch. Under the support of the giant Buddha, Senju Cheng and Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni almost instantly reached the sky from the ground. Immediately, Senju Cheng did not rush to launch an attack, but quickly turned around to check the situation of Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni. The strike of the cross-sword of extermination cut from the side of Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni's shoulder near his neck to the end of the third rib on the right side, forming an exaggerated wound. Through this wound, Senju Cheng could even clearly see Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni's lungs. In addition, there was a penetrating wound in Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni's abdomen that was attacked by a sneak attack, affecting many internal organs, and the reason why Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni's spirit was temporarily paralyzed seemed to be that there was some kind of toxin in his body. While Senju Cheng made a quick judgment, his hands still showed the light of Udayo, and his left and right hands covered the wounds on Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni's right shoulder and abdomen respectively. In just a few breaths, Senju Cheng had completed the emergency hemostasis for Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni's exaggerated wound. At least, there is no need to worry about whether Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni will die from blood loss. With this few breaths of buffering, Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni also seemed to have regained the initial control of his spirit body. He grabbed Senju Cheng's wrist with his only remaining left hand and said, "Senju, I can still." However, before Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni finished speaking, Senju Cheng interrupted him. "Captain Yamamoto, leave the next thing to me, you have a good rest." "No, this is my battle, and it is also that disaster I left behind 1,000 years ago. I must deal with it myself," Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni said angrily, and the whole person wanted to stand up again. However, regardless of whether Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni is still capable of fighting in his current state, losing his right hand holding the knife is enough to destroy most of the combat power of a death god. "Captain Yamamoto, there is nothing that can be accomplished in one generation. Now that you have retired, please leave the fate, disasters and grudges left to the God 13 to your successor," Senju Cheng said without giving Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni a chance to refuse. He waved his hand to create several green grasses to continuously treat Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni and restrict his movements. Then, Senju Cheng jumped and landed in front of the chest of the wooden giant Buddha, so that he could watch Ithwatch's every move more clearly. It was the same appearance that Lloyd had transformed through the holy text yourself. However, even the true body of this so-called king of Queens Ithwatch still did not have the slightest majestic kingly spirit, but instead showed a tyrannical and cunning temperament. Will such a guy really be qualified to seize the world and sit on the real throne? A trace of doubt flashed through Senju Cheng's mind. Although judging people by appearance is a very bad habit, it is not known whether it is related to the fact that the essence of the world is composed of name and tool. Therefore, Senju Cheng vaguely discovered that there is a rule in this world, that is, strength may not be completely equal to appearance, but it is obviously positively correlated with style, bearing, etc. Similar to the existence of Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni, Unohana Retsu, Aiden Sosok who does not deliberately disguise himself, the bearing exuded by the appearance alone is obviously not comparable to that of ordinary captains. So in Senju Cheng's opinion, Ithwatch in front of him does not look like he has the bearing to ascend the throne. At this moment, Ithwatch clearly feels an inexplicable malice in Senju Cheng. This makes Ithwatch's already ugly face even more gloomy. Senju Cheng. The combat power of this man is far beyond expectations. It is obviously impossible to kill Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni under his protection. Then, Ithwatch raised his palm, condensing a large amount of spirit light. Multiple holy extermination arrows just when Senju Cheng thought that Ithwatch was about to launch another attack. Ithwatch's palm was aimed directly at the right arm of Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni that was cut off and fell to the ground. A large number of holy extermination arrows shot out. Boom. Not only the broken arm, but even the ground was turned into a bottomless pit under the power of the holy extermination arrows. "Yamamoto, even if you are lucky this time, I will temporarily accept part of the interest." Ithwatch threw his cloak and turned his back to Senju Cheng, as if he was making a declaration. "Next time, I will completely seize everything and become the king of everything. As for you, Senju Cheng," after a pause, Ithwatch's eyes slightly turned to the side, and when he was about to glance at Senju Cheng and say something, Senju Cheng's figure had disappeared from its original position. Chapter 781. Wrong ode to the Holy Emperor? Me? A questioning voice with a hint of laughter sounded beside Yuha, who was in the blind spot of his sight. Yuha expression froze, and he raised the cross of extinction almost instinctively. Dang! The moment of collision, it was almost as if an explosion occurred, and Yuha was directly blown away. Yuha, the Seireitei is not a place where you can come and go as you please, especially when you brag next time, remember not to bring me with you. As Senju said this, he used his palm without holding the knife to cover Yuha, who was flying backwards. The next moment, the situation changed suddenly. The huge giant Buddha that turned into a horizontal Buddha moved. As if copying Senju action, the palm of the giant Buddha also covered Yuha. However, there were thousands of giant Buddhas, which turned into several circles of wooden giant palms similar to the Buddha wheel and slapped Yuha, who was flying backwards at the same time. At this moment, the sky in Yuha's eyes was completely occupied by giant wooden palms, and then, slapped. Boom boom boom. First, the Shinigami Academy of Spiritual Arts, then the Seireitei and the more distant Cheng-ge, all shook violently as if there was an earthquake. Yuha, who had subconsciously maintained the silent blood suit for defense, had spiderweb-like cracks on the surface of his body after being slapped twice. This was a symbol that the silent blood suit was on the verge of its defense limit. This made Yuha's expression change almost on the spot. Yuha was naturally not completely unaware of the strength of Senju combat power. However, from the perspective of an outsider, looking at the simple and crude Bankai of Morika Mikabata, Yuha's fear of it was far less than the extreme meaning of the Zanka no Tachi that burned everything. However, after being slapped a few times himself, Yuha finally realized that it was a weight that exceeded the limit that an ordinary body could bear. The mass of each wooden giant palm is enough to be compared with Bankai, Heaven's Punishment Black Road Meowing, and with the terrifying inertial fall, it is not an exaggeration to regard it as a real meteorite fall. However, after being slapped twice and pressed to the ground, it is impossible for Yuha to get out of the overwhelming wooden giant palm. Immediately, Yuha gritted his teeth and raised his arms forcefully. Shell-static blood suit. Suddenly, the power of the shell-static blood suit that originally existed in Yuha's blood vessels quickly expanded outward, madly infusing power into it, and turned into a spherical shield covered with blood vessel patterns. Almost at the moment when Yuha's shell-static blood suit was formed with all his strength, the wooden giant palms completely submerged Yuha's position. The ground carrying Yuha soon completely collapsed, allowing Yuha, who was wrapped in the shell-static blood suit, to fully stand out. For a moment, from a distance, the shell-static blood suit seemed to have turned into a basketball, and countless hands were slapping that basketball frantically. However, Yuha's face, which was originally full of confidence and contempt, became paler and paler. The seemingly endless pressure made Yuha's heart sink unconsciously, and he even regretted that he was too arrogant. It was only a few days away from the time for the power to fully awaken. Now, he couldn't wait to avenge Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikumaichi for 1,000 years, but instead put himself in a difficult situation. Although Yuha was sure that everything in the Ode to the Holy Emperor that he had predicted with all his strength before he fell asleep 1,000 years ago would eventually come true. But Senju, this special existence is the unknown that had never been seen 1,000 years ago. Will the future I see be changed by this abrupt unknown? With this thought, Yuha, who was doing his best to maintain the shell-static blood suit, felt a flash of panic in his heart. If I am defeated by Senju here, will everything in Ode to the Holy Emperor be changed? And after hundreds of crazy slaps from the wooden giant palm, even though Yuha was still desperately maintaining the shell-static blood suit, cracks still appeared little by little. Once the shell-static blood suit was broken, Yuha could already predict what the end would be. Relying solely on the flesh, it would be impossible to withstand such a terrifying attack. Turning into meat paste is the only result, and it would be a more miserable and desperate defeat than 1,000 years ago. No, my future is definitely not like this. The cracks in the shell-static blood suit are still getting worse. Morika's wooden giant palm has not stopped yet. Senju put his palms together in front of him, staring at Yuha's direction with lightning-like eyes, exuding a stern killing intent. Interrupt Senju. Yuha knew the key to his escape was to interrupt Senju, who was constantly manipulating the wooden giant Buddha. The only hope was Haskveld. Through the gaps where the giant palms kept falling, Yuha tried to pass this key information to Haskveld through the corner of his eyes. However, when Yuha found Haskveld's figure and saw Unohana Retsu standing in front of Haskveld, Even Youthwatch couldn't help but feel a sense of helplessness and despair in his heart. Youthwatch was very clear about the combat power of Unohana-Retsu and Haskveld. It was for this reason that Youthwatch knew very well that even Haskveld could not get rid of Unohana-Retsu's obstruction in a short time. Crack, crack. Finally, the surface of the shell-static blood suit was completely covered with cracks and shattered, right in front of him. At this point, Youthwatch, who could not find any way out, could only stare at Makoto Senju, as if he had completely engraved Makoto Senju's figure in his soul, just like he did when facing Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni 1,000 years ago. One day, the thought in the heart of Youthwatch, who was almost desperate, suddenly paused. Behind Makoto Senju, a black cavity suddenly opened, and Aizen Sasuke approached Makoto Senju almost instantly, and his zanpakutō slashed straight at Makoto Senju's neck. And Aizen Sasuke's long-planned surprise attack seemed to be completely beyond Makoto Senju's expectations. Or in other words, the opportunity that Aizen Sasuke was looking for was simply wonderful. At this moment, when Makoto Senju was just a little bit away from breaking the shell-static blood suit, Makoto Senju's attention was completely focused on Youthwatch, and he subconsciously lowered his defense against the changes around him. Chapter 782 Ichigo's Anger Bang. The moment the silent blood outerwear was broken, wooden giant hands were about to fall on Yuha bark from all 6 directions. However, those wooden giant hands suddenly lost their power and stopped completely. Yuha bark's pupils, which had unconsciously shrunk into adult, trembled slightly, and then his figure instantly disappeared from the spot, leaving the place where he was bombarded by countless wooden giant hands. Then, Yuha bark subconsciously looked towards the original position of Senju Makoto. There was an amazing wound deep enough to see the bone on the back of Senju Makoto's neck. It turned out that he almost beheaded Senju Makoto with a knife. At this moment, Yuha bark, who had survived a desperate situation, unconsciously had some subtle changes in his heart, and even instinctively felt a little sorry that he couldn't kill Senju Makoto. Originally, Youthwatch thought that the world would work as predicted in Ode to the Holy Emperor. The Sealed King of the Queen Sea regained his heartbeat after 900 years, regained his consciousness after another 90 years, regained his power after another 9 years, and regained his world in just 9 days. Youthwatch thought that his return to Soul Society would be a true return of the king. Therefore, Youthwatch could not wait to declare war on Soul Society and launch an attack just after completing the stage of regaining his power from 1,000 years ago. The most important purpose was to avenge Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni for 1,000 years. However, the reality made Youthwatch suffer hundreds of big sinuses, and he almost got beaten into a meat paste. However, Youthwatch's mouth corners slightly raised, and when he looked at Aizen Sasuke, he revealed a smile. Sure enough, the result is already determined. I will become the king of the world. Even if Senju Makoto, a character who does not exist in Ode to the Holy Emperor, appears, it cannot affect the future that has already been determined. Compared with the series of changes in Youthwatch's expression, Senju Makoto seems to be unusually angry and ugly because of Aizen Sasuke's sneak attack. While one hand is emitting the light of Usman quickly healing the injury on the back of his neck, he said in a deep voice. Aizen. So you have fallen to this point? As a god of death, you actually choose to cooperate with the Queen Sea. Aizen Sasuke said with an unchanged expression. Mr. Makoto, your realm needs to be improved. I have already surpassed the so-called god of death. What's more, you don't seem to have any right to blame me for cooperating with the Queen Sea. Don't forget the Queen Sea named Kurosaki Makoto. At this moment, the other combat forces who had withdrawn from the Seireitei to support also rushed to the edge of the battlefield. However, at this moment, the Mao Academy of Spiritual Arts in the battlefield has almost been completely reduced to ruins, and the terrifying deep pics show how amazing the aftermath of the battle is. More importantly, the appearance of Aizen Sasuke made the expressions of the arriving Shinigami condense. Even though the war with the Invisible Empire continues to this day, in the minds of many Shinigami, Aizen Sasuke's threat and terror is still higher than Youthwatch. In the current confrontation on the battlefield, Aizen Sasuke and Youthwatch seem to have come together, which is undoubtedly very bad news for the GOTY 13. And when Aizen Sasuke mentioned the name Kurosaki Makoto, the expressions of many Shinigami changed slightly. After all, in the information now made public, the reason why the Kikya Palace did not launch an attack on the Seireitei for 2 consecutive years. It is precisely because the man named Kurosaki Makoto has been continuously killing the hollows in the Kikya Palace beyond visual range, so that Aizen Sasuke has no chance to gather enough strength to start a war again. especially Kuroseki Ichigo, who also arrived at the battlefield as a support. When he heard the name Kuroseki Makatao, Kuroseki Ichigo's expression changed instantly. In the past 2 years, the reason why Kuroseki Ichigo did not hesitate to actively practice the ability of the Quincy was to be able to recover enough strength one day to go to the Hukomundo to defeat Aizen Sasuke and bring back Uncle Kuroseki Makatao. Now, how can Kuroseki Ichigo not be excited to hear the name Kuroseki Makatao from Aizen Sasuke's mouth again? However, as Aizen Sasuke's next sentence sounded, Kuroseki Ichigo's eyes were dull. Now that Yubak has helped me get rid of your Quincy ally Kuroseki Makatao, I can't just watch you get rid of Yubak. The mental shock brought by this short sentence made Kuroseki Ichigo feel that his whole head was buzzing, and he was stunned. Uncle Kuroseki Makatao was killed by Yubak. After several breaths, Ichigo Kuroseki finally reacted, and his chest began to breathe heavily unconsciously. Anger completely occupied Ichigo Kuroseki's brain. The next moment, Ichigo Kuroseki disappeared from the spot, and rushed towards Ithwatch with a long sword of spirit particles in his hand. Kill! The undisguised killing intent and anger completely broke out in Ichigo Kuroseki's body, and the long sword of spirit particles slashed straight at Ithwatch's neck. And Ichigo Kuroseki's sudden action also surprised Ithwatch a little. Aizen Sasuke just mentioned to him from a distance that this time he asked him to help him kill a Quincy named Kuroseki Makatao for the favor of saving him, but why did Ichigo Kuroseki rush over as if he had seen the murderer of his father? The next moment, the long sword of spirit particles collided with the cross sword of the Quincy. Yubak, I want you to pay for what you did. Kuroseki Ichigo roared hoarsely, and his other hand once again condensed a new spirit sword, and he attacked Kuroseki Ichigo frantically with the double sword style. Ding 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 ding, in a series of collisions, Yubak looked at Kuroseki Ichigo with a crazy face, and the words "I'm your father" that he wanted to say were a bit unspeakable. However, the difference in power between the two sides was almost obvious. After Yubak slightly recovered from Kuroseki Ichigo's madness and anger, the cross-sword of extinction swept across and directly cut off the spirit sword in Kuroseki Ichigo's hand. Then, at the moment when Kuroseki Ichigo had almost no reaction, Yubak's palm grabbed Kuroseki Ichigo's neck and pressed him to the ground. Bang! The huge impact made Kuroseki Ichigo feel that his internal organs were displaced, and he instinctively entered the state of still blood suit. Ithwatch looked at the lines that appeared on Ichigo Kuroseki's body after he put on the stilled blood suit, tagged them with his fingers, and spoke like a loving father who had been away for a long time. Ichigo, my blood is flowing in your body, you should be. Chapter 783 Shocking Casualty Figures. However, before Ithwatch could finish, Ichigo Kuroseki spat a mouthful of blood foam at Ithwatch. Suddenly, Ithwatch, who was originally preparing for a passionate speech, did not expect that Ichigo Kuroseki would behave like a high school delinquent. So much so that the blood foam hit Ithwatch's face. Ithwatch, who had already been hit by countless big sinuses, could no longer suppress his anger at this moment, and stabbed the cross-sword of extinction directly at Ichigo Kuroseki's head. However, at this moment, the ground where Ichigo Kuroseki was located collapsed instantly. Ichigo Kuroseki, who was originally pressed to the ground by Ithwatch, had a little more space to dodge, and several huge trees clamped towards Ithwatch's head from left to right. Boom boom. Ithwatch leaned back and dodged the sudden attack, and suddenly felt a large shadow coming towards him. The overwhelming wooden giant palms fell towards Ithwatch again. For a moment, Ithwatch seemed to have some bad shadows in his heart. He almost subconsciously loosened the palm that was pinching Ichigo Kuroseki's neck and quickly retreated to the back. The wooden giant palm that was about to fall on Ichigo Kuroseki stopped instantly after forcing Ithwatch back. Ahem. Ichigo Kuroseki climbed up again, and two spirit swords condensed in his hands again. When he was about to continue attacking Ithwatch, Makatao Senju blocked in front of Ichigo Kuroseki and said, "Ichigo, calm down, you are not a match for Ithwatch now." "Master Senju." Ichigo Kuroseki said angrily and unwillingly, but after the brief collision, Ichigo Kuroseki obviously understood the huge gap between the two sides. On the other side, after Ithwatch quickly pulled away to a safe distance, he looked at Senju Makatao and the giant wooden Buddha with eyes full of fear and anger. At this moment, Haskvald temporarily shook off Unohana Retsu, retreated to Ithwatch's side, and whispered a reminder. "Your Majesty, the time is almost up." Ithwatch glanced at Haskvald, revealing a hint of praise. In fact, the reason why the Invisible Empire can appear in every corner of Soul Society at will is because Youthwatch is maintaining an ability called Shadow Realm. However, with the power that Youthwatch has currently recovered, there is still a limit to the time he can maintain the Shadow Realm, not to mention completely forcing the Invisible Empire existing in the Shadow World to be squeezed into the real Silent Spirit Garden. However, more importantly, Haskvald's words gave Youthwatch enough steps to leave. Originally, after destroying the right arm of Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni and realizing that it would be difficult to defeat Senju Cheng in a short period of time, Youthwatch had already made some threats and returned to the Shadow World. Now that Haskvald took the initiative to bring up this matter, Youthwatch felt that he was not forced back by Senju Cheng. Then, Youthwatch threw his cloak, swept his eyes around the surrounding dead gods, and finally landed on Senju Cheng, and said, "Death gods, today's events are just the beginning, and it is just announcing my return to the world. Next time, it will not be just this degree." Almost as soon as Youthwatch's voice fell, a layer of dark shadow enveloped Youthwatch, Haskvald and Bambita who were present. At the same time, the Invisible Empire within the entire Seireitei also began to be passively covered by this layer of shadow. Finally, Youthwatch looked at Aizen Sasuke, who seemed to be observing something, and spoke. "Aizen, since you and I have similar goals, how about returning with me to the Invisible Empire to discuss the alliance?" "Yes." Aizen Sasuke responded calmly. Seeing this, Youthwatch pointed his finger in the direction of Aizen Sasuke, which had not yet completely disappeared in the shadow, and also covered Aizen Sasuke with a layer of shadow. The next moment, several giant trees appeared almost at the same time beside Youthwatch and Aizen Sasuke and attacked, trying to forcibly interrupt Youthwatch and others from leaving. However, Youthwatch and Aizen Sasuke seemed to be in a different dimension from the Seireitei. The giant trees passed directly through the shadows, and Youthwatch and others completely disappeared before their eyes. Damn it. This scene that happened simultaneously on the battlefield of the Seireitei also made many Shinigami look very ugly. It was clear that the Seireitei had already begun to take advantage and counterattack, but those members of the Invisible Empire actually disappeared in this way. In the post-war period, the preliminary statistical data was quickly summarized in the hands of Makoto Senju. The losses of the 13th Division of the Gotti were quite serious. The captains and vice-captains of the Shinigami were fine, with the constant coordination and support of the wartime headquarters and Makoto Senju's zanpakutō ability that covered the entire Seireitei, so most of them were only injured. The list of captains and vice-captains who died only included Shunsui Kriku, Jiraiya, and Hiri Saraki. The extremely seriously injured captains and vice-captains of the Shinigami, Shibukuni Yamamoto, Makoto Hirako, Kensei Gurume, Chihiro Hitsugaya, Byakuya Kuchika, Rinji Aburai, and Shusugamagani. In particular, the captain of the 5th Division, Shusugamagani, had fallen into a complete coma, and even after Makoto Senju's diagnosis, it was difficult to ensure when he would really wake up. The most serious, however, was the loss at the grassroots level of the 13th Division of the Gotti. Even though that Gotti 13 had prepared many defenses and arrangements in advance, ordinary Shinigami were almost crushed and slaughtered by the Stern-Crossed Knights. In addition, the entire Shino Academy of Spiritual Arts was wiped out. As the casualty data was circulated among the captains and vice-captains at the captains' meeting, anger almost appeared on everyone's faces. Although the number of deaths of the Stern-Crossed Knights was also quite shocking, among the Stern-Crossed Knights, whose holy letters were arranged in 26 letters, the members with holy letters J, L, N, Q, R, Y, and Z have all been confirmed dead. In addition to Yu, who was killed by Unohana Retsu before, even if the Stern-Crossed Knights were fully staffed with 26 holy letters, they would still lose nearly one-third of their number. However, even so, it was still far from enough to eliminate the anger of the Shinigami present. Especially the attack by Youthwatch on the Shinigami Academy of Spiritual Arts and Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni, and then the team could only watch the members of the Invisible Empire leave the battle, which was almost a heavy slap in the face of the Gotti 13. For a time, the voices of fierce and angry crusades against the Invisible Empire were boiling in the captain's meeting room. Chapter 784 Big Crisis. Fight back. We still don't know where those rats are hiding. Ichimura Jin's words were like a bucket of cold water that destroyed the atmosphere in the captain's meeting room. This problem is obviously a difficult problem that the Gotti 13 cannot avoid at present. Zaraki Kinpachi, who was still bandaged, tilted his head slightly, and after meeting the eyes of Kurosaki Mayuri who was standing opposite, he asked as a matter of course. "Hey, Kurosaki Mayuri, aren't you the director of the Technology Development Bureau?" Can't you find the hiding place of those rats? This tone of questioning immediately annoyed Kurosaki Mayuri, and he retorted. I took back my Bankai during the war and blocked the enemy's perfect holy body. I didn't have more time to analyze the enemy's position. What do those things have to do with me? I don't have Bankai, but those guys can't enter the perfect holy body, so the feel of chopping them has become much worse. Zaraka Kinpachi smacked his lips and said. Besides, I'm the captain of the battle squad. It is my job to cut down the enemy. But if I can't find the enemy, that should be the problem of the Technology Development Bureau. What do you mean? Should I blame you for not being able to awaken your Bankai? And after I restricted the perfect body of all the enemies, as the captain of the battle squad, you can't completely destroy them. Kurosaki Mayuri retorted with a gloomy face. Seeing that Kinpachi Zaraki and Kurosaki Mayuri, two guys who seemed to have a bad impression of each other, were about to clash in the captain's meeting room. Senju Cheng, who originally let the captains vent their emotions on their own considering that they had just experienced a big battle, shouted. Enough. As soon as these words came out, the originally noisy scene in the captain's meeting room completely quieted down. At this moment, Senju Cheng did not deliberately hide the extent of his direct control over the entire GOTY 13. Or rather, Senju Cheng wanted to clarify certain things in this captain's meeting. Therefore, Unohana Retsu, as the captain, simply did not attend this emergency captain meeting. Instead, he continued to treat some of the seriously injured soldiers in the 4th Division's barracks. At this moment, Senju Cheng, who was originally standing in the position of the captain's adjutant, walked forward a few steps, exuding a dignified aura, and faintly stood in the position that originally belonged to Unohana Retsu. However, the captains and vice-captains present almost instinctively did not feel that there was anything wrong. Senju Cheng held his zanpakutō with both hands and stabbed it on the floor, and spoke in a deep voice. My thoughts and emotions are the same as yours. More than half of the houses in the Seireitei were destroyed, and nearly half of the grassroots Shinigami were killed or injured. Several captain-level Shinigami were sacrificed, and even the former Captain General Yamamoto was almost killed by a sneak attack. This is a shame for the entire Seireitei, and it is also a shame for us who bear the name of the GOTY. In the end, we watched the enemy escape without being able to stop them, which undoubtedly made everyone angry. However, everyone present is an important pillar of the Seireitei. Even if you're angry and unwilling, you should never lose your basic calmness and rationality and vent those emotions on your companions. These words with a hint of rebuke echoed in the captain's meeting room, but no captain dared to refute them. Even Kinpachi Zaraki, who usually behaved the most wild and arrogant, trembled fiercely, but still did not dare to refute Senju Cheng. Then, Senju Cheng spoke in a calm tone. Now, the enemies of the Invisible Empire, led by the defeated Yubabak from 1,000 years ago, have a very clear goal. 1. Revenge on the Seireitei. 2. Seize the entire world. The power of the enemy should not be underestimated. Even if the enemy's perfect body is blocked, the combat power of the Invisible Empire is still not inferior to the GOTY 13. There are still quite a few suspected members of the Holy Cross Knights who have not yet appeared. And it is clear that Yubabak is very likely to form an alliance with Aizen Sosok. Therefore, when the enemy launches the next wave of offensive, the Seireitei will most likely face a severe situation of joint siege by the Invisible Empire and Akiniak. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of the Shinigami present were all stern, and they completely understood the seriousness of the matter. With the current power of the GOTY 13, it might be difficult to deal with the Invisible Empire or the Akiniak, not to mention that these two great enemies have joined together. Of course, among them, Yorishi Shirin and Sawaya Zaraki, who knew the real target of Senju Cheng, were calm in their hearts, but they also showed some emotional changes on the surface. If Yubabak and Aizen Sosok join forces, the current GOTY 13 may not be able to defend at all. More importantly, Yubabak has the ability to lead a large number of enemies to descend on the interior of the Seireitei at any time. If Yubabak and Aizen Sosok jointly launch a surprise attack, how should we deal with it? It's impossible to deal with it. The GOTY 13 can't always be highly alert. In an instant, the Shinigami present completely reacted from the anger and frustration of the previous full-scale counterattack against the Holy Cross Knights, but could only watch them escape. The current situation is that the Seireitei is still in a precarious crisis and may be completely overturned at any time. The atmosphere in the conference room has become more heavy. Only Shifu and Yorishi showed an ugly expression, just like a cat who couldn't stand the stimulation and wanted to steal fish. He bit his lower lip secretly, and then his cat-like eyes quietly looked at Senju Cheng. The feeling that everyone was drunk, but he was the only one awake, knowing that the man in front of him was Pua many death gods step by step, made Shifen Yuan Yorishi couldn't help but quietly provoke Senju Cheng. For a while, in this environment where Unohana Retsu was not present and there were many captains and vice-captains around, Shifen Yuan Yorishi, who instinctively made these moves, felt a strong stimulation filling his whole body, his wheat-colored skin was slightly flushed, and even his breathing became a little heavier. Senju Cheng, who was standing in the front, looked at this scene, and his natural acting skills almost paused. Is this demon cat's old problem going to happen again? And, at least he should consider the occasion. No, it should be said that this occasion made this demon cat start as if it smelled something. At this moment, Senju Cheng was really afraid that Shifen Yuan Yorishi would make some strange noises, then the good atmosphere he had created with great difficulty would be completely destroyed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 785 Where the Enemy Goes, I couldn't go to. The next moment, except for Zaraki Fire, the spirit particles that the other Shinigami could not directly observe with the naked eye formed an invisible hand to block Shion Yorishi's mouth. A slight whimper made Shion Yorishi, who felt something was wrong, startled, and then instinctively looked towards Senju Cheng. However, Senju Cheng seemed to have not noticed Shion Yorishi's changes at all. His eyes were so deep and distant, as if his eyes carried the hope and future of peace for the entire Seireitei. The other Shinigami also did not notice the slightest bit of abnormality. Even Hitsuge Aishiro, who was standing next to Shion Yorishi, just thought that Shion Yorishi's slightly heavy breathing was just because she couldn't control her anger towards the Invisible Empire. Hitsuge Aishiro could understand this very well, but he was a little surprised that Shion Yorishi, who seemed to behave differently from ordinary people, actually had such feelings and awareness. As expected of a senior, even though he usually seems to act irresponsibly, when the Seireitei encounters a crisis, his thoughts and actions can still be called imitation. Hitsuge Aishiro silently praised Shion Yorishi in his heart, and decided not to care about Shion Yorishi's tricks on him from time to time in the past 2 years. Then, Hitsuge Aishiro, who was seriously injured and dragged his sick body to attend the meeting, once again put all his attention back to the dilemma facing the Seireitei. Due to the possibility of an alliance between Ithwatch and Aizen and Sasuke, the crisis facing the 13th Gotti squad is not only that they may be attacked by the Invisible Empire at any time, but also that their frontal combat power is far from enough. However, no matter how Hitsuge Aishiro thinks about various countermeasures, he still can't find a single feasible idea. The atmosphere in the captain's meeting room is becoming more and more heavy. Until, Senju Cheng, who was standing above, slowly speaks. Now, blindly defending will only led to death, and the reason why the Invisible Empire did not launch a real general attack on the Seireitei is that it must be waiting for a certain opportunity they need. Therefore, the counterattack you mentioned before is a feasible proposal to disrupt the Invisible Empire's plan and regain the initiative. As soon as these words came out, war-loving elements like Kinpachi Zaraki were shocked. However, Hitsuge Aishiro, who tried hard to stay awake, couldn't help but ask. So Senju, even if we want to fight back, we can't find the real location of the Invisible Empire. Don't worry about this. Senju Cheng said, and after closing his eyes slightly, he reached out and took off the glasses on his nose, revealing a pair of sharp and determined eyes, and spoke. If the enemy can go, I can go too. When Ubark led the Holy Cross Knights to attack the Silent Court, he inevitably left loopholes that could be caught. Now, I can almost determine the location of the Shadow World where the Invisible Empire exists. Since Ubark wants to capture the Silent Court, then we can naturally take their Invisible Empire directly. Instead of letting the Silent Court become a battlefield, it is better to break their rhythm and fight to the death in advance. This declaration, full of enlightenment and iron-blooded meaning, shocked the spirits of many Shinigami present. Looking at Senju Cheng standing at the head of the conference room at this moment, some Shinigami even felt a little unfamiliar with Senju Cheng, but more captains couldn't help showing a smile full of fighting spirit on their faces. The 13th Gotti Squad is a substantial military organization. Fighting has never been avoided by the 13th Gotti Squad. Instead, it is the main theme that accompanies a Shinigami throughout his life. Agree. Agree. I can't wait to see the terrified expressions of those rats. For a moment, even though that captain was not present, the captain's meeting room unanimously passed the proposal to counterattack the Invisible Empire. As for how to proceed to the Invisible Empire, Senju Cheng did not say it directly, but only set the time for the counterattack to 5 days later. These 5 days are to give all the Shinigami a buffer and preparation time. More importantly, a considerable number of captains also need these precious 5 days to recover from injuries and adjust their status. Then, after setting some of the plans for counterattacking the Invisible Empire and ending the meeting, Senju Cheng hurried to the 4th Division's barracks. Now, the most likely place in the entire Jingling Court is the 4th Division's barracks. The busy 4th Division members and the large number of wounded who are constantly coming in and out make the entire 4th Division run at a high intensity, and even need to draw out the soldiers who are good at Kido from other divisions to assist. Of course, perhaps for Senju Cheng, he can completely treat the wounded on a large scale by releasing the power of his zanpakutō. But, this is not wartime. If it is wartime, Senju Cheng will naturally provide a wide range of medical support if he has the spare capacity, but in the post-war stage, Senju Cheng will not choose this approach. After all, for the inheritance and advancement of Kido and medical skills, the wounded are also a necessary part. If Senju Cheng takes on all the treatment of injuries, there will only be one consequence after thousands of years, that is, Kido and medical skills may regress to an unimaginable level, or even disappear directly. In the 4th Division's barracks, the respectful greetings of the Shinigami, Senju Cheng responded one by one with a gentle and calm expression, and went straight to the central area of the 4th Division's barracks. Soon, after seeing Senju Cheng, Chojiro Suzuki, who was guarding the door of an independent courtyard ward, saw Senju Cheng and took the initiative to speak. Vice Captain Senju. Senju Cheng responded quickly. Senior Suzuki, how is Captain General Yamamoto? Upon hearing this, Chojiro Suzuki's expression became a little ugly, and then he spoke. After the personal treatment of Captain Unohana, Lord Yamamoto's injury is no longer a big deal, but there is a problem with his arm. Huh? Senju Cheng asked in confusion. Although the broken arm was completely destroyed by Thwatch, didn't I send someone to Karakura town to invite Miss Inoue? With Miss Inoue's unique ability, she should be able to heal Captain Yamamoto's injury. Hearing this, Chojiro's expression became a little more embarrassed, and then he leaned close to Senju Cheng's ear and whispered. But Lord Yamamoto believes that it is a great shame to let a mere human erase the scars left by his own carelessness, so he is unwilling to accept Miss Inoue's treatment. Chapter 786. Ways to save respect. This, Senju Cheng had never expected that Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni would refuse treatment for this reason. Then, Senju Cheng and Chojiro entered the ward, which seemed quite lively. However, Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni, who had lost an arm, looked calm, while Yukita Joshiro and Komamura Sejin looked quite gloomy and solemn. In addition, there was an Ueorihime, who was standing at the edge of the room and felt a little bit at a loss. After Senju Cheng appeared, Ueorihime's face almost subconsciously revealed a happy expression, but thinking of Senju Cheng's explanation, she quickly lowered her head to cover it up. The main purpose of Senju Cheng's special visit was to care about Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni's injury. In the past, in order to seize the Seireitei, Senju Cheng did not have unnecessary womanly kindness towards Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni. However, this did not conflict with the basic respect that Senju Cheng always maintained for Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni in his heart. Positions are positions, and emotions are emotions. As for the former captain who has retired, Makoto Senju never worried that Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni might be able to regain the right to speak in the Seireitei. Even if that happened, Makoto Senju would blame himself for being too incompetent, and it took him 2 full years to completely control the Seireitei. Now, in his attitude towards Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni, in addition to regarding Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni as the spiritual mascot of the Gotti 13 to stabilize the morale of the army, Makoto Senju also respects Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni emotionally. Therefore, after Makoto Senju greeted the former captains present one by one, he cared about Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni's injuries as a junior and a doctor, and persuaded Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni to accept Ueorihime's treatment. However, Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni's pride and stubbornness were somewhat beyond Makoto Senju's expectations. Obviously, what he lost was his right hand that held a sword, which would have a fatal impact on Yamamoto Seireitei Shichikuni's swordsmanship and combat power. but Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni may have stepped down because he no longer had to bear the huge responsibility, but he seemed a little more willful. Finally, in the gentle tone of Senju Makoto that made it difficult for people to refuse, Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni waved his left hand and said, "Okay, Makoto, I know you are concerned about me, but whether my right hand recovers or not is not an important matter to me." After a pause, without waiting for Senju Makoto to continue persuading, Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni continued to speak. "It is said that you will raid the Invisible Empire in 5 days." "Yes." Senju Makoto did not hide it. Or rather, this kind of thing could not be concealed. "Can you find the location where Youthwatch is hiding?" "There is a high probability." Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni nodded, and then his expression became obviously serious, and he said, "Take me with you. I will kill Youthwatch with my own hands this time. Only in an area that will not affect the Seireitei can I release the power of the Zanka no matter what. Captain Yamamoto, with your arm, if you agree to my request, I will naturally heal this arm and then fight Youthwatch to the death." Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni replied. Senju Makoto. It turns out that Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni is waiting for him here. For a moment, Senju Makoto couldn't help but laugh and cry. He didn't expect that Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni, who used to be serious and unsmiling when he was the captain, would use such a trick to request to fight against the Invisible Empire. Even Yukita Joshiro, who originally showed a sad expression, couldn't help but speak to Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni. "Teacher, please don't make such a request that will embarrass Makoto-kun." "Why? Who do you think I am? I was just careless just now. I didn't dodge. You came to trick and sneak attack, ahem." Senju Makoto's violent cough interrupted the voice of Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni. It's not that Senju Makoto doesn't believe that Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni's fighting power is still like the ceiling of the god of death. It's really that this sentence made Senju Makoto feel an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Could it be that the way a generation of masters finally uphold their dignity is always surprisingly similar? When this thought came to Senju Makoto's mind, he also politely rejected Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni's idea. It's not that he doesn't believe in Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni's fighting power, but the grudges and hatreds between Yhwach and Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni that have lasted for 1,000 years are likely to cause some variables to the plan prepared by Senju Makoto. "Captain Yamamoto, this is one of the reasons why I came to visit you this time. This counterattack on the Invisible Empire is a gamble that will cost everything. However, the most important mission of the 13th Gotti Squad is to surround the Seireitei, and there are still a lot of things in the Seireitei that need to be protected, and the Infernal Hell also needs to retain enough power for defense. Therefore, when the main forces of the 13th Gotti Squad are out in full force, the Seireitei still needs a respected person to sit in order to suppress some inappropriate thoughts and guard against possible attacks." Finally, under the coaxing and flattery of Senju Makoto, Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni had to give up his original idea and was willing to treat his right arm and stay in the Seireitei for the time being. Under the ability of Inoue or I'm called rejection of all things, Yamamoto Shinigami Shichikuni's arm was restored to its original state as if time had gone back. Then, Makoto Senju took Inoue or I'm out of the ward. When Yukita Joshiro and Komamura Sejin saw them off to the gate of the courtyard, Komamura Sejin, who was hesitant to speak, finally made up his mind and spoke. "Vice Captain Senju, if you need me now, please tell me. Although I have retired, I will not forget my responsibility as a member of the Gotti 13. Okay." Makoto Senju smiled and responded, and then said, "Then I will trouble Captain Komamura to assist Captain-in-Chief Yamamoto and take charge of the Defense Patrol mission of the Seireitei." After saying that, Makoto Senju bowed slightly to Yukita Joshiro and Komamura Sejin and said, "The two seniors have made enough contributions and sacrifices for the Gotti 13. Please rest assured to leave the rest to us. We will definitely bring victory to the Seireitei." Seeing this, Yukita Joshiro and Komamura Sejin hurriedly bowed to Makoto Senju in return. Immediately, Senju Makoto left their sight with Inoue or I'm in a swift and decisive manner. Watching Senju Makoto's departing back, Yukita Joshiro and Komamura Sejin looked at each other, with some emotion unconsciously surging in their eyes. Although Senju Makoto is only a junior, he does have a reassuring power. Chapter 787 Teacher, I'm still here. When Makoto Senju brought I'm Inoue to find Yuna Hanaretsu in the 4th Division, Yuna Hanaretsu had just completed the last critical surgery. Although from an objective point of view, Kotetsuin and Yokiriza are both excellent doctors, and they are also capable of supporting the operation of the 4th Division. However, some invisible talent has destined that there will always be an insurmountable gap between the level of Kotetsuin and Yokiriza and Unohana-retsu. As Unohana-retsu, Makoto Senju and Ori Minui returned to the top floor of the 1st Division's castle tower, Unohana-retsu asked with concern. Makoto, how is it? Well, for now, everything is still going according to plan. Captain Yamamoto has promised to take charge of the Jinglitung on behalf of them. Makoto Senju replied. Unohana-retsu heard this, her beautiful eyes flashed slightly, and said, Mr. Makoto is leaving a way out for the Gotti 13 and the Seireitei, right? If they fail in the next brutal struggle, with Captain General Yamamoto still in charge of the Seireitei, there is no need to worry that the Gotti 13 will be completely eliminated from the Seireitei. Senju Makoto shook his head and denied. I will not lose. Captain General Yamamoto's reputation is definitely quite intimidating to the Invisible Empire. Only with Yamamoto Jinrai Shichikuni in charge can we guarantee that the Invisible Empire will not choose to switch homes with us. Switch homes? Unohana-retsu nodded when he heard this, thinking that this statement was quite vivid. After all, the enemy Thwatch is not an upright person, but acts in a conspiratorial and ruthless style. Therefore, there is not enough power left in the Seireitei to stop Thwatch for a short time, and it is possible that he will really choose to switch homes with the Gotti 13. Cheng, but in this case, will Thwatch really choose to attack the Soul King Palace directly as you planned? Unohana-retsu asked with some doubt. It's not that he will choose, but I will only leave him this only choice. If he doesn't take this path, then I will kill him first. When he said this, Senju Cheng's eyes narrowed slightly, revealing a chilling light and murderous intent. If it weren't for the fact that Thwatch still had considerable value, when Thwatch caused that level of damage to his own Jingling time, and only showed that level of power, Senju Cheng's heart did not have the idea of simply killing Thwatch directly. However, Senju Cheng still chose to suppress it. Now that the location of the shadow space hidden by the Invisible Empire has been truly confirmed, Senju Cheng no longer passively waits for the specific extent of Thwatch's so-called taking back the world in only 9 days prophecy. Instead, Senju Cheng took the initiative to promote the prophecy in the ode to the Holy Emperor. Either Thwatch will choose to take advantage of the opportunity when the Gotti 13 divisions have all entered the Invisible Empire and the Seireitei is temporarily unable to support the Soul King Palace, and directly launch a surprise attack on the Soul King Palace to seize the world. Or, Thwatch will die in the Invisible Empire, and she will step on Thwatch's corpse to go to the Soul King Palace to face Hyoshogu Ichiba and fulfill the prophecy that Thwatch has not fulfilled. Since Makoto has made a decision, then just go ahead and execute it. I believe in you. Unohana-retsu spoke in a calm tone, which contained the trust that was gambled with her life, and for the first time in front of Senju Makoto, she called herself I in front of her. Unohana teacher, this made Senju Makoto's heart warm. In this familiar environment, he almost subconsciously hugged Unohana-retsu in front of him, and then when he did some familiar movements, a weak and stuttering voice rang out. Well, teacher, I'm still here. Senju Makoto turned his head and looked in the direction of the voice. Inoue, whose face was already red and whose hands were covering her eyes, suddenly began to smoke faintly. At this moment, Inoue was panicked and confused. Originally, Inoue was listening to Senju Makoto, who seemed to be discussing something that was of great significance and had an impact on the world, and Senju Makoto's whole person exuded an awe-inspiring charm. Although Inoue didn't quite understand, it didn't affect Inoue's feeling that Senju Makoto was even more powerful. When she was concentrating on studying and understanding, the scene in front of her suddenly changed. Senju Makoto actually hugged his own teacher, Captain Unohana, in front of her face, and even Inoue felt that she was so embarrassed that she felt dizzy and couldn't tell directions. What kind of teacher-student love is this? Isn't it Dame's? Senju Makoto looked at Inoue, who was almost fainted from shame, and a bit of embarrassment appeared on his face. Just now, he really subconsciously forgot the existence of Inoue. Fortunately, Inoue spoke in time, otherwise something that was too early for Inoue would have happened. Well, I'll go find Ichigo. He has been practicing the power of the Queen Sea for 2 years and can enter the next stage. Senju Makoto, who had no idea how to explain his behavior in front of Inoue, simply threw this sentence and disappeared in an instant, heading towards the direction of Kurosaki Ichigo's spiritual pressure. At this moment, on a desolate hill of the Double Strike, Kurosaki Ichigo looked at the Double Strike spear that was once pierced and destroyed by an arrow shot by Uncle Kurosaki Makoto. Staring blankly, every bit of his Uncle Kurosaki Makoto's memories kept emerging in Kurosaki Ichigo's mind. When Ichigo Kurosaki first met Makoto Kurosaki in his childhood, although he was full of gratitude for Makoto Kurosaki, he didn't like him very much. It's not just because when Ichigo Kurosaki saw Makoto Kurosaki, he would unconsciously recall the moment when his mother was attacked and his own cowardice and powerlessness. More importantly, the good relationship between his mother Misaki Kurosaki and Makoto Kurosaki made Ichigo Kurosaki feel that his mother's love was taken away by the other party. As he grew up, Ichigo Kurosaki recalled the specific actions of Makoto Kurosaki when he saved his mother, and he couldn't help feeling a little embarrassed, which also made Ichigo Kurosaki subconsciously avoid Makoto Kurosaki. Until he encountered danger and encountered difficult problems, it was Makoto Kurosaki who stood by his side, and even risked his life to break into the Seireitei with him to save people. After that, Uncle Makoto Kurosaki has been helping him silently and guiding his growth. This won Ichigo Kurosaki's respect and trust, and regarded Makoto Kurosaki as an important existence second only to his parents and sister. When Ichigo Kurosaki broke into the palace of the night to rescue his mother, he saw Makoto Kurosaki, who had turned into a spirit, protecting him at all costs. This made Ichigo Kurosaki's love for Uncle Makoto Kurosaki reach its peak. It turned out that Uncle Makoto Kurosaki had been silently doing so much for him and had been protecting his growth, but I can't do anything for you, Uncle Kurosaki. Ichigo Kurosaki clenched his fists, shed tears, and whispered with gritted teeth. Chapter 788. Uncle Zanjitsu and Ichigo You Can. The next moment, a gentle voice like jade sounded behind Kurosaki Ichigo. Kurosaki Ichigo quickly turned around and looked behind him, and said respectfully, Master Senju, why are you here? I looked around the 4th Division's barracks and asked around, and then I found out that you are here. Senju Makoto said. In fact, with the presence of Seireitei, Senju Makoto knew everything about Kurosaki Ichigo's every move in the Seireitei, so he naturally ran straight to the double killing hill. However, for Makoto Senju now, such words that can make others feel warm and valued are almost easy to say. Ichigo, have you completely recovered from your injuries? Why did you come here on purpose instead of staying in the 4th Division to recuperate? Master Senju, I came here to relax. Kurosaki Ichigo was also flattered when he heard this. After all, from Kurosaki Ichigo's perspective, Senju Makoto was a legendary figure who had revived 2 years ago. Now he was not only a core figure of the GOTY 13, but also had a great favor to the Kurosaki family. Is it because of Mr. Kurosaki Makoto's matter? Senju Makoto's tone was a little heavy. Yes. Kurosaki Ichigo couldn't control the expression on his face. I later learned a lot about Mr. Kurosaki Makoto's deeds through various channels. He was a great man. He made an indelible contribution to my personal recovery and the peace of the whole world. Senju Makoto's tone also revealed a lot of sighs, as if he was lamenting the death of a hero, without a trace of unnatural look. This also touched Kurosaki Ichigo's already sad and angry heart again, causing Kurosaki Ichigo's expression to change almost obviously. Then, Senju Makoto's tone changed and asked. So, Ichigo just wanted to avenge Mr. Kurosaki Makoto, but was worried about the lack of combat power. Kurosaki Ichigo nodded unwillingly and answered. Whether compared to Yuuchi or Aizen Sasuke, I seem to be still far behind. Senju Makoto pondered for a moment and said. Ichigo, a plan to counterattack the Invisible Empire was set at the captain's meeting soon, and the time is 5 days later. Kurosaki Ichigo's expression suddenly shocked, and he almost blurted out. Senju-sama, please allow me to join in. Yes, but there is a prerequisite. Senju Makoto raised a finger and said earnestly. If you can't meet that condition, I won't allow you to join, otherwise you will be controlled by emotions and you may just lose your life in vain. Kurosaki Ichigo asked with gritted teeth. What is the condition? I will definitely meet it. Senju Makoto's face showed approval, and then said. Before I tell you the condition, I need to help you restore your power as a god of death. Restore your power as a god of death. Ichigo Kurosaki's face was filled with shock and disbelief. Don't forget, I'm also the most outstanding doctor in the entire Seireitei. In my spare time over the past 2 years, I have occasionally studied your condition. So, however, before Makoto Senju could explain the principle in detail, Ichigo Kurosaki couldn't wait to speak. If you want to restore your power, please tell me what I need to do, Master Senju. You don't need to do anything, just stand still. It will be a little painful. Makoto Senju smiled gently. Okay. Ichigo Kurosaki took a deep breath and responded seriously and solemnly. Then I'll count to 3 and start. Okay. 1. Puff. Just as the sound of 1 reached Ichigo Kurosaki's ears, Senbon Bancho pierced through Ichigo Kurosaki's chest head-on at this moment, which made Ichigo Kurosaki a little dazed and unable to react. The next moment, Ichigo Kurosaki felt a stream of heat flowing through his body and continuously flowing to the deeper part of his heart. Then, Ichigo Kurosaki felt that his eyes went dark. When his vision was restored again, Ichigo Kurosaki had already arrived in his long-lost inner world. In the upside-down high-rise world, it was raining heavily, and the seawater below was constantly pouring back, as well as the familiar figure standing in the rain, seemingly waiting for something, the black figure of Uncle Zanjutsu. Ichigo Kurosaki's expression suddenly revealed full of joy, and he rushed towards Uncle Zanjutsu and shouted. Master Senju is so amazing that he actually resurrected Uncle Zanjutsu. However, when Ichigo Kurosaki saw Uncle Zanjutsu's appearance again, he suddenly froze in place. Before, due to anger, Ichigo Kurosaki didn't even have time to observe Yufuachi's appearance carefully. Until he saw Uncle Zanjutsu again, Ichigo Kurosaki suddenly realized that Yufuachi and Uncle Zanjutsu looked so similar. Except for the fact that Uncle Zanjutsu was wearing sunglasses and the obvious difference in their temperaments, the rest of their facial features and body shapes were exactly the same. Zanjutsu, Uncle Zanjutsu, you, Ichigo Kurosaki spoke in a daze. However, Uncle Zanjutsu disappeared from Ichigo Kurosaki's sight in an instant, and then appeared behind Ichigo Kurosaki, speaking calmly. Ichigo, what you want to say is why Yufuachi and I look so similar, right? Ichigo Kurosaki nodded subconsciously, and then suddenly realized something. Uncle Zanjutsu, how do you know? Didn't you disappear after the last Getsuga Sky Strike ended? Yes, I've always been here, Ichigo. Uncle Zanjutsu replied. This made Ichigo Kurosaki suddenly startled, and he looked at Uncle Zanjutsu, who he trusted so much, with a little more doubt in his eyes. Uncle Zanjutsu lowered his head slightly, and the sunglasses that refracted the light made it difficult to see the changes in his eyes, but he exuded a strong sense of sadness, and spoke. Because, I am not Ichigo's real zanpakutō, and I am not Yufuachi, but I am Yufuachi to some extent. What? Kurosaki Ichigo found it difficult to understand what Uncle Zanjutsu meant. Not zanpakutō. How is that possible? And why would Uncle Zanjutsu be related to Yufuachi? However, facing Kurosaki Ichigo's question, Uncle Zanjutsu looked up at the pouring rain that seemed to have fallen, and said slowly. Ichigo, and the reason why I know everything that happened to you in the past 2 years is because I am the source of your queency power, the queency power inherited from your mother and derived from Yufuachi. Chapter 789. Cutting the Moon. Chapter 789 Zanjutsu. Queency, power. Kurosaki Ichigo muttered. That's right. The reason why Ichigo's queency power reached a level beyond that of an ordinary captain in a very short time is because the queency power in you, Ichigo, has always existed. You just started to notice it 2 years ago. Uncle Zanjutsu spoke slowly, but there seemed to be a certain urgency in his tone. Why? Why did you tell me now, Uncle Zanjutsu? Then who is my real zanpakutō? Kurosaki Ichigo questioned. Suddenly, a rebellious and harsh voice sounded in Uncle Zanjutsu's body. Of course, it's me. Foolish king. The next moment, the white face of the hollow that Kurosaki Ichigo regarded as a hollow appeared on Uncle Zanjutsu's shoulder, and seemed to force its way out of Uncle Zanjutsu's body. Ho, do you think you can still suppress me? Although I don't know where the power comes from, but, however, before the white-haired man, whose facial features were almost identical to Ichigo Kurosaki, could finish his words, a large number of black shadows suddenly emerged from Uncle Zanjutsu's body and rushed towards Whitehair, forcibly submerging Whitehair completely, and then suppressed it back into his body bit by bit. Ho, pointless persistence. Even so, how long do you think you can buy in the end? Whitehair's voice was already barely audible. This scene also stunned Ichigo Kurosaki, and he found it even more difficult to understand the information revealed in it. Ichigo, as you just saw, white-haired is your zanpakutō. Uncle Zanjitsu spoke, his expression still calm, but his eyes were always fixed on the sky that was constantly pouring down heavy rain. However, to be more precise, the haiku is the fusion of the Shinigami and the hollow in your body, and I am your queency power. Also, I have been suppressing them for more than 10 years, so the Zanjitsu and hollow you used are actually just the fragments of the power leaped from the haiku. For a moment, Kurosaki Ichigo was completely stunned and asked, "No, that's not right, what about the last Getsuga Tensho?" Uncle Zanjitsu answered slowly. "Ichigo, do you remember your training when you were performing the last Getsuga Sky Strike? When the being that was fused with me was fighting, at that moment, Kyaku was saying goodbye to you. Because once you use the last Getsuga Sky Strike, Kyaku may not completely disappear, but will be completely suppressed by me. You are the king, and we are just mounts after all. We all have things we want to protect. Kyaku wants to protect you at all costs, and I want to protect this sky that reflects your heart. And now, this sky is raining an unprecedented downpour. Ichigo, you are sad." At the end, Uncle Zanjitsu slowly closed his eyes, as if he also fell into sadness. However, Ichigo Kurosaki, who suddenly knew the truth of this moment, asked in confusion, "Why? Uncle Zanjitsu, why did you choose to tell me the truth now?" "Because, there is almost no time," Uncle Zanjitsu replied. As soon as these words came out, Ichigo Kurosaki, who was originally a little angry about Uncle Zanjitsu's concealment, was stunned. A trace of panic flashed in his heart, and he hurriedly asked, "What do you mean there is no time?" Uncle Zanjitsu took a deep breath and slowly opened his eyes again. The firmness and sharpness in his eyes made Ichigo Kurosaki seem to return to the scene when he first met Uncle Zanjitsu. "That man, the man named Senju Cheng-ge, is terrible, Ichigo. The balance I originally maintained was forcibly broken by that man, and he is also forcibly mixing the Shinigami, hollows, queency and even some deeper powers hidden in your body. That man has an extremely terrible understanding of the nature of the world. He will definitely be a more terrible existence than you watch. Ichigo, the road ahead, be careful." Almost as soon as Zanjitsu's last word fell, a cold snort came from nowhere into this inner world. HMPH. It was with this sound that the entire inner world began to collapse instantly. Uncle Zanjitsu could no longer suppress the void in his body, and void was instantly separated from his body. Immediately afterwards, countless high-rise buildings in the inner world began to collapse crazily, and the crazy rainstorm was so continuous that it seemed to turn the world into an ocean. Countless high-rise buildings sank into the sea in an instant. Uncle Zanjitsu and void, as well as more and more high-rise ruins, sank uncontrollably into the depths of the sea. Seeing this, Ichigo Kurosaki instinctively wanted to reach out in the direction of Uncle Zanjitsu and void, but found that his whole body was rising uncontrollably towards the height. Inexplicably, Ichigo Kurosaki opened his eyes subconsciously, but found that he had returned to reality. In front of him, Makoto Senju was still holding the 10,000 things in his chest. Makoto Senju spoke gently. "How does it feel? The communication with the power in your body." Master Senju, how did you know?" Ichigo Kurosaki asked subconsciously. "Of course, I'm a doctor." Senju Makoto's smile was kind and gentle, which made Kurosaki Ichigo subconsciously feel a strong liking and trust. "Ichigo, the relationship between each Shinigami and zanpakutō is completely different. Some people regard them as friends, relatives, lovers, companions, etc. But in essence, it is undoubtedly a kind of spiritual weakness reflected in the inner world. Ichigo, but you have to be clear about one thing, that is, all power is just power. Be firm in your heart. As a king who controls power, you should not be shaken by the whispers of power." After a pause, Senju Makoto spoke in a more serious tone. "Then, give your new zanpakutō a new name." It was not until this time that Kurosaki Ichigo noticed that his hands were condensed with a constantly changing ball of light, from which Kurosaki Ichigo felt the power of Shinigami, hollows, queency, and some power that even Kurosaki Ichigo himself could not describe. At this moment, Kurosaki Ichigo finally understood what Uncle Zanjitsu meant at the end. The hidden power in the body was completely guided out by Senju Makoto, and it was guided out without the control of Uncle Zanjitsu and Kyobaku. In an instant, countless chaotic thoughts flashed through Ichigo Kurosaki's mind, especially about the feelings of Uncle Zanjitsu and Kyobaku, and he was worried that they would disappear completely because of this. However, when Ichigo Kurosaki's mind emerged with the scene where Aizen Sosop revealed that Itachi killed Uncle Kurosaki Makoto, Ichigo Kurosaki's belief became simple almost instantly. Zane, you. Calling this name again, defining this name in an instant. As Ichigo Kurosaki's belief became firm, the ball of light in Ichigo Kurosaki's hands condensed into a pair of special double swords Zenjutsu. Chapter 790. Infernal Fight Double Blades. At this moment, the Zenjutsu held in Kurosaki Ichigo's hand has already taken the form of a double blade, a long and a short black double blade. This surprised Makoto Senju a little, but after thinking about it, he felt that it was reasonable. Before this, there were nominally two pairs of double blade zanpakutō in the entire Soul Society, namely the zanpakutō of Kikushansui and Jikitsujushiro. Of course, in fact, Kikushansui's double blade zanpakutō is fake, and one of the blades actually exists only to hide the divine sword 8 mirror sword. The only real double blade zanpakutō is Jikitsushiro's zanpakutō. The most important reason why Jikitsujushiro has an extremely special double blade zanpakutō is that Jikitsujushiro has the right arm of the Soul King in his body. The power of the God of Death and the Soul King interweaves to form that special pair of zanpakutō. Now, Kurosaki Ichigo's situation is similar. Even if Makoto Senju has stimulated all the hidden powers of Kurosaki Ichigo and blended them into a fairly balanced state, then, Ichigo Kurosaki formed a new zanpakutō through his will, but the conflict between the Quincy, the Shinigami, and the Hollows still caused Ichigo Kurosaki's zanpakutō to transform into a double blade form. At this moment, Ichigo Kurosaki was also looking at the double blade Zenjutsu in his hand, and then casually swung it towards the open space next to him. Boom. There was no spiritual pressure released or exploded, but a terrifying impact was formed at the moment when Zenjutsu was swung. Starting from the feet of Ichigo Kurosaki, a huge gully was formed and spread to the end of the site of the double dead hill. This amazing power made Ichigo Kurosaki himself stunned and said subconsciously, "Is it so strong?" Makoto Senju rubbed his chin and guessed. Ichigo, in the past, the power of the Shinigami, Hollow, and Quincy in your body has always been in a state of mutual suppression or restraint. The power you usually use is probably just a small part of the lead fragments. Unless you encounter some extreme danger, I'm afraid that the mixed power in your body will cooperate with each other for a short time, allowing a certain power to be exerted to the extreme, so that you can get out of the predicament. After a pause, Senju Makoto's tone became more earnest. However, even in this state now, I only forced the power in your body to reach a balance, so that you can use it freely, but you can only rely on yourself if you want to fully exert this power, or even further integrate all the power into yourself. Kurosaki Ichigo, who has completely come to his senses, has a radiant hope on his face, no longer confused and low-pitched angry, and asked, "Senju-sama, what should I do next to fully exert this power?" "Of course, fight," Senju Makoto said. "With Senju-sama?" Kurosaki Ichigo asked. "No, I found a better opponent for you, and that opponent also needs you to give him enough pressure so that he can enter a better state before counterattacking the Invisible Empire," Senju Makoto said, then turned and walked towards the direction of the first team's barracks. "Follow me, Ichigo." "Yes." Kurosaki Ichigo did not hesitate at all, holding the double sword Zenjutsu and quickly followed Senju Makoto's footsteps. Originally, Kurosaki Ichigo thought that Senju Makoto was going to take him to the training ground at the first team's barracks, but he walked towards a long passage leading to the underground, and opened a ghost seal door at the end of the passage through a series of cumbersome methods. Behind that door, there was a darkness that seemed to swallow everything. Senju Makoto walked in first. Seeing this, Kurosaki Ichigo followed without hesitation based on his almost full trust in Senju Makoto. In such a special environment, he couldn't help asking, "Master Senju, what is here?" Senju Makoto said with a chuckle, "This is the most suitable place for your next battle, the Infernal Hell. Otherwise, with your current combat power that can destroy half of the double-killing hill with a wave of your hand, the Seireitei can't withstand your torment. Infernal Hell." Such a terrifying name, such a dark and silent environment, made Ichigo Kurosaki shudder. However, after knowing that he could attack here at all without worrying about damaging the Seireitei, Ichigo Kurosaki, who had just gained new power, couldn't help but feel eager to try, and said, "Master Senju, then is it you who are going to fight me?" "No, Ichigo, if you want to fight me, it's too early. I came here to provide you with medical care." Otherwise, if one of you is accidentally injured here, I will feel guilty for the rest of my life. Makatao Senju said in a compassionate tone, but the next moment he was interrupted by a rough voice that seemed to be suppressing extreme excitement. You're too late, Senju. And, the one you said could fully inspire my fighting instincts, is that the brat Ichigo Kurosaki. Ichigo Kurosaki looked in the direction of the voice, and the tall and oppressive figure of Kinpachi Zaraki slowly walked out of the darkness. Captain Zaraki, don't underestimate Ichigo now, or you'll suffer a great loss. Senju Makatao reminded him warmly. TSK, Ichigo this brat. However, before Kinpachi Zaraki finished speaking, Ichigo Kurosaki disappeared instantly in his sight, and instinctively felt that the amazing danger was approaching Kinpachi Zaraki. When Kinpachi Zaraki reacted, Ichigo Kurosaki had already stopped in front of Kinpachi Zaraki, with a long moon-chopping sword in his hand pointing directly at Kinpachi Zaraki's throat, and it was only a few centimeters away from his throat. How is it, Captain Zaraki? Ichigo Kurosaki said. Kinpachi Zaraki grinned, and the aura he exuded seemed to have turned into a beast in an instant. Very good. You've become stronger, Ichigo. Senju Makatao, who was standing nearby, saw this and spoke as the ground beneath his feet quickly spread out a large patch of green grass that covered the entire area. Since you have already greeted each other, you two can fight to your heart's content until one of you completely surrenders. Also, don't worry about any safety issues. I'm a professional in medical skills. If it's just you two, even if my head is chopped off, my heart is pierced, or I'm cut in half, I can recover for you in a very short time. So, please forget about fighting to the death. Almost at the moment when Senju Makatao finished speaking, Kinpachi Zaraki and Ichigo Kurosaki collided with each other, and a large area of sparks exploded from the intersection of the three zanpakutō. Chapter 791. Crown Prince of the Invisible Empire. At the same time, inside the ice palace of the Invisible Empire, Yhwach sat high under the throne, and below him were the Holy Cross Knights, which seemed a little sparse compared to the past. Lost 8 people. Although the internal struggles and conflicts of the Holy Cross Knights were also quite large, a considerable number of familiar faces disappeared completely, which still made some of the Holy Cross Knights present show a bit of grief. On the contrary, Yhwach on the throne turned a blind eye to the vacant members of the Holy Cross Knights below, as if the 8 dead Holy Cross Knights were as insignificant as dust. In this main hall, in addition to the members of the Invisible Empire, Aizen Sosok stood at the forefront of all the Holy Cross Knights. The aura exuded by Aizen Sosok made him stand here not like Yhwach's subordinates, but like a dragon entering an ant's nest. Obviously due to their height, Aizen Sosok needed to look up slightly at Yhwach on the throne, but the indifference and arrogance in his eyes made Yhwach feel uncomfortable instinctively. Yhwach, who originally wanted to use his power to suppress others and gain an advantage in the psychological game, so as to gain an advantage in the subsequent negotiations with Aizen Sosok, could not help but come to a conclusion in his heart. Aizen, there is no possibility that you will become his subordinate. Even the arrogance exuded by Aizen Sosok made Yhwach, who thinks highly of himself, unconsciously have the intention to kill him. It is similar to the fact that in the world that Yhwach wants to control, such a powerful person is instinctively not allowed to exist. However, although Yhwach looks calm, in the eyes of Aizen Sosok, the occasional changes in his eyes made Aizen Sosok guess Yhwach's thoughts almost exactly. This also made Aizen Sosok more and more disdainful of Yhwach in his heart. Compared with Makatao, who was a master of micro-expression management and an Oscar-winning actor, Aizen Sosok can see through Yhwach's acting skills at a glance. As for Yhwach's narrow-minded and fearful thoughts, Aizen Sosok despised them even more. However, after a moment, Yhwach, who knew that he still needed Aizen Sosok to contain Senju Makatao, chose to suppress his murderous intent and was ready to squeeze out Aizen Sosok's usefulness and then wipe him out. And Yhwach, who had been sleeping for 1,000 years, was obviously not the type who was good at speaking, and he spoke bluntly to Aizen Sosok. Mr. Aizen, you and I have similar positions and a common enemy, the Seireitei. How about forming an alliance? So? What? Aizen Sosok's question made Yhwach a little stunned. My value lies in the fact that you need me to contain Senju Makatao, so correspondingly, what value can you, or the entire Invisible Empire provide me? For a moment, this bold and arrogant speech made many of the stern-crossed knights who regarded Yhwach as god angry. The anger caused by being disobeyed also made Yhwach's heart subconsciously raise the intention to kill again. However, Yhwach smiled and asked, Lord Aizen, what do you want? Half of the world. Okay. Yu Bark responded heroically, as if half of the world was just a cloud in his hands, and said, "When I ascend the throne of the Soul King Palace and reshape a new world, half of the world will belong to Lord Aizen." Aizen Sosok finally had a satisfied expression on his face and replied, "Then thank you, His Majesty the Emperor of the Invisible Empire." At this moment, both sides were undoubtedly pretending to be polite. Half of the world, Yu Bark naturally would not give it to Aizen Sosok. He agreed to it only to use Aizen Sosok's fighting power. Aizen Sosok made that request purely to show his greed and ambition, and then let Yu Bark temporarily believe in this fragile and short-lived alliance. Then, Yu Bark announced a covenant to all the members of the Stern-Crossed Knights present, and declared Aizen Sosok's status equal to his own, and agreed to share the world after obtaining it. In this regard, the eyes of many Stern-Crossed Knights looking at Aizen Sosok were mostly filled with murderous intent, indifference, hostility, playfulness, etc. By the way, I need to introduce another person to you, that is, the heir of the Invisible Empire. Yu Bark's voice suddenly sounded like thunder in the hearts of the Stern-Crossed Knights, making many Stern-Crossed Knights look shocked. The heir of the Invisible Empire. The next moment, at the entrance of the main hall, a figure wearing a white military uniform and a white cloak with the emblem of the Invisible Empire slowly walked out. Aizen Sosok's eyes turned, and when he saw the person clearly, his eyelids could not help but slightly lift. Seireitei. Something unexpected happened. Was this arranged by Makao? Oh, looking at Seireitei who appeared calmly, several thoughts flashed through Aizen Sosok's mind. And Seireitei who walked out step by step, his eyes flashed with a stern murderous intent when he glanced at Aizen Sosok. This person is the Crown Prince of the Invisible Empire from now on, and the owner of the Holy Letter, Seireitei. The information announced by Yu Bark set off a storm in the hearts of many Stern-Crossed Knights. The lofty status that all the Stern-Crossed Knights longed for was actually taken away by this seemingly weak stranger in front of him. And as the rally ended, in the room of the Holy Letter Joggers, Litoto, and Minina, the three members of the Holy Crossed Knights who escaped from the jingling court and returned to the Invisible Empire, all looked a little silent. Moreover, there was still an exaggerated wound mark on the lower abdomen of Joggers, Litoto, and Minina. That was the mark left after being pierced by Senju Makao in the jingling court and then healed. Joggers, who was usually very irritable, was a little quiet at this moment. She didn't even discuss the alliance between Yu Bark and Aizen Sosok at the rally just now, and then announced that Seireitei would become the Crown Prince. Instead, she murmured, "I didn't expect that we could return to the Invisible Empire alive." Giselle was not so lucky. Even her body was completely crushed into sauce. Minina said a little sadly. The most petite Litoto curled up in a chair and corrected. "It's not that we are lucky, but that the man named Senju Makao deliberately let us go. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 792. Kate is entangled in green grass. Sent on purpose. "No way," Minina said after realizing it a little bit, and then she said with a wild imagination, "Could it be that the god of death named Senju Makao is one of His Majesty's own people arranged in the jingling court?" Litoto made an X sign with both hands in front of her chest and refuted. "How is it possible?" Giselle was killed without hesitation. Different from the violent style of her own holy text ability power that often lifted up the house and smashed it like a cannonball, Minina asked a little stupidly. "Then why does Litoto think that he was deliberately let go?" Katis, whose most of her face was hidden in the brim of her hat and her long green hair, said slowly. "Because the gap is too big. Even if we have used the perfect holy body in front of the man, the gap between us and him is still so big that we can't even look directly at him." After these words came out, Minina nodded unconsciously, and Litoto subconsciously felt a sore and painful mouth. After a moment of silence, Minina still asked with some doubts, "Then why did Senju Makao let us go? If the biggest difference between us and Giselle is that Giselle's gender is Giselle, our gender is female." Hearing this, Katie subconsciously reached out and touched the circular scar left on her abdomen again. At that moment, the lightning lightsaber in her hand was only a few feet away from Senju Makao, but the sharp wooden spear that pierced through her abdomen and Senju Makao's expression did not change at all. Katie knew that the distance between the two sides was actually as far as heaven and earth. Perhaps it's because we are too weak, so weak that the man can't raise the slightest murderous intent. Just like when we look at a cute kitten grinning, we don't think the kitten is angry, let alone feel threatened. Cotiz's face darkened further, and the emergence of this conclusion was a despair to Cotiz's proud and confident heart. As for Giselle, perhaps it was simply because the man understood that his ability could cause widespread harm, or perhaps it was simply because the man felt disgusted and vulgar. So, we survived, but Giselle was not found. For a moment, the room fell into silence. Until, bang! The door of the room was kicked open roughly. Bambayata, wearing a white short-skirt military uniform, strode in with her slender legs, and looked at Cotiz, Minina and Litoto, who seemed to be hiding in the room together, and spoke with full energy. I said, "What's wrong with you? You didn't come to find me after the rally, why are you hiding here together?" As she spoke, Bambayata glanced around and realized that the number of people seemed to be wrong, and asked, "Where's Giselle?" "He's not with you." "Giselle has been killed," replied Jadis. "Her." Bambayata's face was clearly filled with anger when she heard that, and she casually waved her hand to the side. Boom. The huge explosion instantly created a hole of unknown depth on the side of the room. Who did it? It was that guy called Kyan. However, before Minina could finish her words, Jadis covered Minina's mouth and spoke instead. "Bombi, the Gotti 13 is much more troublesome and difficult than you thought. Don't think about avenging Giselle. Instead, you must be extra careful when facing those Shinigami in the future. Especially those guys called Special Combat Force by His Majesty, they are all very dangerous." Bambayata said with disdain on her face when she heard this. "TSK, it's as if those death gods can pose any real threat to your majesty." After a pause, Bambayata said with a bit of dissatisfaction in her tone. "On the contrary, letting the guy of unknown origin named Ishidarai become the crown prince, this might be the hidden danger of the invisible empire." Minina reminded in a low voice. "Your majesty's decision is not something we can criticize." Bambayata stopped talking after hearing this, but her expression looked quite bad. After a moment, Bambayata turned around and left angrily, saying, "I'm going to find a man to kill and vent my anger." Kathy, Minina, and Litoto. As Bambayata left in a hurry, Kathy looked at the room that was in a mess in a few moments, and the corners of her mouth couldn't help twitching. That bastard Bambai, I really shouldn't have reminded her. In the next few days, due to the appearance of Asian Sasuke and Ishidarai, the invisible empire gradually had more undercurrents. A large number of the stern-crossed knights were dissatisfied with the existence of Asian Sasuke and Ishidarai, either openly or secretly. Especially, at the node when Yhwach announced that he was about to take over the world, the appearance of Asian Sasuke and Ishidarai was undoubtedly equivalent to adding two huge forks when dividing the cake, and they would poke away the two largest pieces except Yhwach. However, Yhwach seemed not to notice the undercurrents within the Holy Cross Knights, or he didn't care whether his chess pieces had some other ideas. Yhwach was quietly waiting for the further awakening of power, waiting for the arrival of the important node for conquering the world. As for Katie, Minina, and Litoto, except for occasionally getting together with each other, they mostly stayed in their own rooms, as if they had not yet recovered from the autism of defeat. And in the repaired room of Katie. Katie walked back and forth in the room a little restlessly, not because of irritability, but purely because of inexplicable uneasiness. Moreover, the lower abdomen, inexplicably felt a little hot and painful. Katie frowned, always feeling that something was wrong with this unfamiliar discomfort. "How about, let's go see a doctor?" With this thought in mind, Katie quickly walked to the door. When she was about to open the door, some patterns similar to green grass appeared on her belly, where the scars had completely disappeared. More importantly, Katie felt that her spirit could not move at all. Strands of green grass slowly grew out from Katie's lower abdomen, wrapping her up little by little in Katie's terrified eyes. "What is this?" "Come," Katie wanted to shout out to attract the attention of the surrounding Knights of the Holy Cross. But the moment Katie struggled to control her mouth to open a little, the green grass seemed to have found some kind of gap to drill into her body, and rushed in one after another, quickly filling Katie's mouth. Woo woo. Chapter 793. On the road to victory. Woo woo. Jodis even completely lost control of the spiritual power, spiritual pressure, and spiritual particles in her body. This fear from the unknown made Jodis' pupils turn back and forth in panic, trying to find a slight possibility of breaking the situation around her. But the next moment, Jodis' eyes, which had been turning around in panic, completely calmed down, and even lost some of their light. In addition, the green grass that had originally covered Jodis' body disappeared, except for the green grass pattern similar to a tattoo on her lower abdomen. Then, Jodis opened the door and walked out naturally. However, after opening the door, Jodis did not go in the direction of Ythwach or Haskvald to report the abnormality that had just occurred to her, but turned around and walked towards Litoto's room. Just as Jodis walked to Litoto's door, Minina happened to walk here. The two did not communicate with each other, but walked into Litoto's room in turn and closed the door. Litoto did not react to the arrival of Jodis and Minina, and still lay motionless on the bed. Jodis and Minina did not move at all after entering the room, but stood blankly behind the door. The only thing in common was that Jodis, Minina and Litoto all had strange green grass tattoos on their lower abdomens, which were still resonating with each other. Suddenly, the space between Jodis, Minina and Litoto was torn apart, opening a passage similar to a black cavity. Senju Cheng walked out of it step by step alone. Then, Senju Cheng glanced at Jodis, Minina and Litoto, and with a casual finger, green grass appeared again on Jodis and Minina's lower abdomens. As the green grass wrapped around their bodies, it rolled them directly to the only bed in the room and placed them side by side next to Litoto. As a reward, I won't take your lives, Senju Cheng said gently, and raised his finger again. A special spirit particle floated out from the lower abdomen of Jodis, Minina, and Litoto, and then merged back into Senju Cheng's body. This special spirit particle was left in their bodies by Senju Cheng after he penetrated their bodies, and it was also a spirit particle that Senju Cheng separated from the extreme spirit body. And it was also covered by the spiritual pressure of Jodis, Minina, and Litoto, and successfully concealed from Ythwach and Haskvald, and brought these three spirit particles back to the Invisible Empire. As for the role of these three spirit particles, in addition to being able to be remotely controlled by Senju Cheng, they implicitly serve as a medium for Senju Cheng to use part of his ability of spiritual particle control. And after 5 days, he accumulated enough power to instantly counterattack Candace and others, and through medical skills and the form of Uido, he could control their bodies to a certain extent. Of course, the most important role of these three spirit particles is positioning. Although the world hidden by the Invisible Empire is called the Shadow World, in fact, the Shadow World is not a simple plane. 1 spirit particle is a point, 2 spirit particles are lines, and 3 spirit particles are surfaces, in addition to the 4th spirit particle in the Mirror Flower and Water Moon in the hand of Asian Sussex. This allows Senju Cheng to truly determine the location of the Invisible Empire in the vast and boundless Shadow World. The spiritual pressures in the Invisible Empire were also sensed by Senju Cheng one after another: Ythwach, Haskvald, Asian Sussex, Ishirai, her. Why is the missing right here? Senju Cheng's eyebrows flashed with a trace of doubt, and his finger slightly hooked the spirit particle in the direction of Asian Sussex, and slightly attracted the spirit particle. Senju Cheng's figure retreated back to the entrance that was similar to the black cavity, and the entrance was quickly closed. Even if someone accidentally broke into the room at this moment, no one would notice anything unusual except for the 3 people lying side by side on the bed, who were sleeping soundly, let alone realize that someone had entered and exited the back garden of the Invisible Empire at will. At this moment, in the captain's meeting room in that jingling court, the captains and vice-captains of the Gotti 13, the 2 ghost masters of the Kidmashu, the only remaining captain of the current special operations team, Hirako Mako, the specially invited reinforcements Kuroseki Ichigo, and the retired Yamamoto Janraisai Shichikuni, Yukita Jashiro, and Komamura Sajin all gathered here. At the top, Unohana Retsu knelt on the futon, sipping tea slowly and calmly. The many Shinigami below unconsciously showed a little impatience on their faces, and the powerful spiritual pressure leaked out from time to time. After 5 days of preparation and recuperation, the top fighters of Soul Society gathered here have undoubtedly adjusted their status to the peak, ready to counterattack the Invisible Empire at any time. Especially King Puchizaraki and Ichigo Kuroseki in the crowd, the terrifying spiritual pressure that seemed to be leaked unconsciously, the vice-captains present almost felt a sense of oppression that was difficult to breathe. At this moment, all the Shinigami were waiting for one person, Senju Cheng. Finally, when King Puchizaraki was obviously about to be suppressed, a gentle and steady footsteps came from the back passage of the captain's meeting room. Under the gaze of many eyes, Senju Cheng stepped into the captain's meeting room with a reassuring smile on his face. Then, after nodding to the Shinigami present, Senju Cheng walked to the side of the Captain General Unohana Retsu and seemed to be reporting something softly. Unohana Retsu nodded gently, as if to express approval, and then put down the teacup in his hand and stood up. However, slightly beyond everyone's expectations, Unohana, as the Captain General, did not preside over the next situation. Instead, Unohana said, Vice Captain Senju will be in charge of the counterattack, and then took a step back, highlighting Senju Makutō. Senju Makutō turned to look at the many Shinigami in front of him, and with a little excitement in his heart, he announced, "Everyone, I have found the specific coordinates of the invisible empire hidden in the shadow world." As soon as this was said, most of the Shinigami present unconsciously showed a hint of joy and excitement on their faces. Among them, Kurosaki Mairi asked subconsciously, "What are the coordinates? Give me 3 hours, and I will open the passage to it immediately." "There is no need for that. The open passage may be closed halfway." Senju Makutō slowly drew out his zanpakutō from his waist and raised it high. "And I have prepared an arc for you to crash into the invisible empire." After saying this, the sword fell, a space passage appeared in the captain's meeting room, and through the passage, an endless world of flowers and green grass could be seen. "Everyone, follow me on the journey to victory. This battle lay the foundation for the future of the world." Chapter 794 The Truth About Squad Zero. This battle, the future of the world will be determined. These words, heard by the Shinigami present, stirred up the fighting spirit of most of them. Compared with the former Captain General Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni, the appeal of Senju Makutō's words is undoubtedly much stronger. Therefore, the breathing of many Shinigami became much faster, and their hands unconsciously grasped the handles of their zanpakutōs, and their fighting spirit was completely aroused. This is a battle of Jedi counterattack. Once successful, the hostile forces including Cheng-ge and Sasuke will be completely eliminated, and the pattern of world peace will be completely established. This is also the meaning that most Shinigami understand from Senju Makutō's words, which makes the Shinigami present feel like they are carrying a destined mission. Even if they have to risk their lives for this, they will not hesitate. Even Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni, who was standing in a corner as a spectator in farewell, felt that his aging body seemed to have sprouted the bloody fighting spirit of his youth at this exciting moment. However, only Unohana, Zaraki Futeya, and Shifu Yorishi fully understood the deeper meaning hidden in Senju Makutō's words. Then, Senju Makutō took the lead and stepping into the space channel in front of him and entered the world of endless flowers and green grass. Unohana followed closely, and then the captains and vice-captains of each squad, etc. Yamamoto Seireitei Shibukuni, Yukita Jashiro, and Komamura Sujin watched the Death God step onto the battlefield to counterattack the invisible empire, and solemnly and silently saw them off. At the same time, at a height above the Seireitei that cannot be seen directly, in the Soul King Palace's main hall, the Soul King's Ouchi, which is isolated by the 72 ghost barriers, led by Ichibuya, the main commander of the Hyoshiwabu, all the members of the Zero Division, including Izumi Yukita Rinji Tenshiro, Tani King Haikifunki Arai, Uranomori Shutara Senjumara, and Sword God Namuro, gathered here. Yo, I didn't expect them to really start counterattacking the invisible empire," Namuro said in a strange rap tone. "It's amazing, how did they find the location of the invisible empire? This is a location that even the Zero Division can't confirm." Kirinji Tenshiro raised his airplane head and said puzzledly, "The Gotti 13th Division may not be the opponent of the King of the Queen Sithwatch and the incarnation of evil Aizen Sasuke. It's really troublesome. Should we stop them? Otherwise, in the end, we will have to help the Seireitei clean up the mess." Shutara Senjumara, who has extremely beautiful features but no expression, asked. Haikifunki Arai said with an extremely plump figure. "Not so good, right? We have an agreement between Squad Zero and Lord Yamamoto that Squad Zero cannot interfere in any affairs of the Seireitei before the Gotti 13 squad is completely defeated." Seeing that Nemura Wangjiro and others each held different opinions and argued with each other, Hyoshiwabu Ichibuya, who originally looked honest and kind, patted the floor gently and said, "Well, there is no need to argue about such meaningless things. We just need to protect the Soul King Palace." After a pause, Hyoshiwabu Ichibuya's originally honest and kind face suddenly became a little scary, and said, "As for the rest, everything is destined by fate. The world is already waiting impatiently for the arrival of the new Soul King." New Soul King. When Hyoshiwabu Ichibuya said this term, the members of Squad Zero, who were royal spies, did not show reverence on their faces, but instead had a little pity in the depths of their eyes. Namuro, the sword god who is second only to Hyoshiwabu Ichibuya in seniority in the Zero Division, asked in a rare normal tone, I Monk, the candidate for the new Soul King should still be Thwatch, who was decided thousands of years ago, right? According to common sense, the specially created son of the Soul King and King of Queens Thwatch is undoubtedly the most suitable candidate at the moment. He may not be able to easily support the operation of the world for tens of millions of years like the real Soul King, but he should be able to persist for a period of 10,000 years. Hakushoku Ichiba said with a smile, which made people terrified. Even the three people who joined the Zero Division in the past 1,000 years, Haikifunkyurai, Kirinji Tenshiro, and Shotara Senjumara, have long known this secret that only the Zero Division knows, but they still couldn't help but tremble in their hearts. The history of the entire world is calculated in tens of millions of years. If the time length is measured from the creation of the world to the present, the 1,000 years since the establishment of the GOTY 13th Division is just a very short section. So, there are backup candidates, right? Namio Wang Yu asked. There are a few. Ichigo Kurosaki, Sosatazan, and Makoto Senju have all met the criteria. If that doesn't work, at this point, Hakushoku Ichiba looked at Haikifunkyurai and asked. King of Valley, didn't you ask your junior Uehara Kisyu to develop 2 emergency products? Haikifunkyurai said with a forced and ugly smile on his chubby face. That's right, they are called Hanakari Jinta and Yu. The names don't matter. The 2 emergency products should have been recovered, right? Hakushoku Ichiba asked. Yes, they have been placed in the Watanan. Haikifunkyurai asked. Hakushoku Ichiba's face once again regained a simple and kind smile, and even said it with a bit of reluctance and relief. Uehara Kisyu really has a great talent. In this way, even if the future deviates to an unacceptable degree, I won't have to sacrifice you to maintain the world. As soon as these words came out, Haikifunkyurai, Shotara Senjumara, and Kirinji Tenshiro's faces unconsciously revealed a bit of ugliness. Why in the long time 1,000 years ago, the members of the Zero Division, in addition to the Imonk Hakushoku Ichiba, only the sword god Namuryu. Then, in the 1,000 years since the establishment of the GOTY 13 Division, the Zero Division has gradually added Haikifunkyurai and 3 people. At the beginning, Haikifunkyurai, Shotara Senjumara, and Kirinji Tenshiro also thought that joining the Zero Division was considered a promotion, but when their spirits were transformed into King Keys by Hakushoku Ichiba through the power of the Soul King, and their lives were completely bound to the Soul King palaces where they were sitting. Haikifunkyurai, Shotara Senjumara, and Kirinji Tenshiro only realized belatedly that they had been fooled. From now on, their spirits and even their souls would be completely controlled by Hakushoku Ichiba, and they would be used as new wedges in emergency situations. Chapter 795. Invisible Empire and Secret Garden. However, when Kurai Haikifun and the others realized that they had been fooled, everything was irreversible. On the surface, they might be members of the high-ranking Zero Division, but in fact, they have completely become puppets who cannot disobey Ichiba the Hakushoku. Even when the Soul King, who was cut into a human stick to stabilize the world's wedge, was about to reach his limit, and a new Soul King was urgently needed to appear and become a wedge. Once there was an unexpected event that was beyond Ichiba the Hakushoku's plan. Kurai Haikifun and the other 2 knew very well their role, which was to be cut off their limbs and 5 senses like the former Soul King, and be made into a temporary wedge. That was a fate that was countless times more terrifying than death. Because of this, Kurai Haikifun has been in contact with and supported Kisuke Uehara over the years, telling Kisuke Uehara part of the truth, so that Kisuke Uehara could develop a controllable product that could temporarily serve as a wedge. That is, Jinta Hanakari and Yu, who were raised by Kurai Haikifun in the Wotan Palace at this moment. The changing expressions of Haikifunkyurai and others were also seen by the seemingly smiling Hakushoku Ichiba, but he had no intention of comforting them. As the one who controls all of them, there is no need. Moreover, this is also one of the ways Hakushoku Ichiba controls these subordinates. If they don't want to end up as a wedge, they should follow orders with all their might. Choosing between a member of the Zero Division who is high above or a wedge who loses everything, these subordinates will surely make the most rational decision. Well, the part of the Soul King's power that created Thwatch will soon reach its limit along with the Soul King's body, and will gradually be controlled and used by Thwatch. Before that, Thwatch will follow his inner instinct and will definitely attack the Soul King Palace and try to seize the world. You guys, don't mess things up. Your mission is to stimulate Thwatch's Soul King power to further awaken. Hakushoku Ichiba ordered in an orderly manner, and his tone was as if he was chatting about something. At this time, only the sword god Namuryu in the Zero Division dared to ask. Monk, is it possible that the GOTY 13 defeated Thwatch in the Invisible Empire? There is no such possibility. Hyoshogu Ichibune waved his hand and said. Although Senju Makatao, who seems to be able to use the King's Seal to a certain extent, has shown amazing combat power, the more he suppresses Yuhwach, the further he will accelerate the awakening of the Soul King power in Yuhwach's body. After a pause, Hyoshogu Ichibune stroked his chin and said. After the war, if Senju Makatao is still alive, it is very necessary to recover the King's Seal, otherwise it may be a hidden danger. Kirinji Tenshiro heard this and reminded. If the King's Seal is recovered, it is very likely to cause Senju Makatao's death. With Senju Makatao's prestige in the Seireitei, it is likely to cause protests and opposition from the 13th Gotti. It doesn't matter, just don't let the 13th Gotti know the truth, let him become a hero, and let him sacrifice himself in the name of maintaining world peace. Hyoshogu Ichibune waved his hand and said disapprovingly. You go down and prepare. Yes. Upon hearing this, the other members of the Zero Squad retreated one after another and left the Soul King Palace, the Soul King's Ouchi, where the Soul King was placed. As for Hyoshogu Ichibune, he had no intention of leaving the Soul King's Palace and returning to the palace where he actually lived. The rest of the Zero Squad members were not surprised at all. Since something strange happened decades ago, Hyoshogu Ichibune has been stationed in the Soul King's Palace, and has never left for even a moment, as if he was on guard against something. But what the rest of the Zero Squad members didn't know was that when they turned around, Hyoshogu Ichibune, who had a simple face, looked at them with a look of vigilance, caution and fear. The person who controls the name has not been found in the lower world. The system of zanpakutō makes it impossible for the god of death to take that last step. Even if someone is on the verge of that last step, Hyoshogu Ichibune and Namiru can know it instantly. Now, the only person in the entire lower world who is extremely close to controlling the name is Aizen Sosok. This made Hyoshogu Ichibune look suspiciously at the rest of the Zero Squad members, but there was no way to determine who it was. And at this moment, in the space called Secret Garden by Senju Makatao, all the death gods who participated in the counterattack against the Invisible Empire have entered here, into this special space created by Senju Makatao. Of course, in order to avoid his secret being discovered, Senju Makatao has wiped out all the traces that should not exist before the death gods enter here. Therefore, what appeared in front of all the death gods at this moment was just a world of flowers and green grass that spread endlessly, so beautiful that people were obsessed with it. Even the expression of King Puchizaraki, who seemed to be unable to suppress the killing instinct at any time, slowed down a little, and Kusakayaru was like a small rolling ball, rolling back and forth in the endless flowers, shouting excitedly. Brother Cheng, where is this? It's so beautiful, so fragrant. When the other death gods heard this, they also cast their eyes with a hint of doubt at Senju Makatao. Before this, perhaps you all lacked knowledge of the shadow world, Senju Makatao explained in a gentle tone. To put it simply, if the shadow world is a vast ocean hidden under the real world, then the Invisible Empire is a submarine in the ocean. Before, the reason why Yuabak begged the Holy Cross Knights to appear in the Silent Court at any time was that they exchanged things in the real world and the shadow world through an ability called Shadow Realm. However, the position of the submarine is not always the same. Therefore, Haskvald mentioned to Yuabak that time is almost up. This is not because Yuabak's power is about to run out, but that it is almost time for the submarine to move. If Yuabak and others failed to return to the Invisible Empire before this, it is very likely that they themselves will never find the location of the Invisible Empire in the Shadow World again. This easy-to-understand metaphor made almost most of the Shinigami present understand the connection between the Silent Court and the Invisible Empire. The characteristics of the Invisible Empire are also different from the Secret Garden created by Senju Makatao. The Secret Garden has an anchor point, which is similar to a small boat with its anchor dropped. The anchor point fixes the position of the Secret Garden in the Shadow World, and allows Senju Makatao to return to the Secret Garden anytime and anywhere. Chapter 796. Crashing into the space of the Invisible Empire. Of course, the reason why the Invisible Empire does not have an anchor point is also obvious. Yuhwach has been sleeping in the Invisible Empire for thousands of years, and has almost no need to enter or leave the real world. And even if a traitor like Ishida Sokjin appeared in the Holy Cross Knights during the 1,000 years of Yuhwach's sleep, he could not lead the Gotti 13 to find the location of the Invisible Empire, further ensuring the safety of Yuhwach during his sleep. Kachikabyukaya vaguely understood and said. So, this is why Makatao-kun disagrees with the Technology Development Bureau to open the channel to the Invisible Empire. That's right, because the location of the Invisible Empire is not always the same, there is probably only one chance to counterattack the Invisible Empire. Senju Cheng nodded and said. Not to mention the risk of being intercepted when opening the channel, the location of the Invisible Empire will change later, and the original fixed channel back to the Seireitei will also be invalid, cutting off our possibility of retreat. Oh wow, Master Senju, your ideas are still as amazing as always, Kurosaki Mayuri suddenly said. So Master Senju specially created a space in the Shadow World, and then prepared for us to carry this space and directly crash into the Invisible Empire. Yes, it seems that Captain Mayuri Kurosaki has understood my idea. Senju Cheng said. As soon as this was said, the faces of some of the Shinigami present could not help but change slightly. Now, what the Shinigami saw was a space with flowers and green grass that stretched as far as the eye could see, not a bumper car. Two completely different spaces collided with each other, wouldn't they just disintegrate and explode directly? Road Guru Makensei said with some concern, which resonated with many people. This approach, even in the eyes of the Shinigami, was absurd and exaggerated. Senju Cheng shook his head and smiled to comfort him. It's not as scary as Captain Road Guru May thought. In terms of size, this can only be regarded as the boarding of two ships, and only in this way can the position of the Invisible Empire be completely fixed, and there is no need to worry about watching the Holy Cross Knights escape again. After a pause, Senju Cheng said in a more solemn tone. If we want to really wipe out the hidden rats, we have to completely destroy their lairs and make Yuthwatch completely lose his retreat. This sentence not only reveals the reason why Makoto Senju led the 13th Division of the Court of Justice to attack the Invisible Empire in the current way, but also to cut off the rest of Yuthwatch's retreat. In the future of Yuthwatch, he will either fight to the death with Makoto Senju in the Invisible Empire, or take the opportunity to attack the Soul King Palace. Judging from the personality characteristics of Makoto Senju's brief contact with Yuthwatch, the probability that Yuthwatch will choose to sacrifice most of the Holy Cross Knights to delay that 13th Division of the Court of Justice led by Makoto Senju to attack the Soul King Palace is 99%. Although it is not a 100% probability and there are still various risks, Makoto Senju is determined to gamble. Because Makoto Senju has clearly felt that he can't afford to delay. In the past 2 years, Makoto Senju has been continuously absorbing the instruments into himself through the secret garden. Makoto Senju gradually felt that the absorption of the instrument was about to reach a critical point, but before that, there was still a problem. That is, the spirit and the instrument are completely different things. Now, the reason why no one has found anything abnormal in Makoto Senju is that Makoto Senju has been constantly covering up the instrument through his own control over the spirit. It's like an egg, the spirit is the egg white, and the instrument is the yolk. However, as the absorption of the instrument continues to increase, there will be a moment when the spirit will not be able to completely cover the instrument. At the time, once it breaks through the critical point, the abnormality in Makoto Senju will have no way to hide. Therefore, Makoto Senju can't delay any longer, otherwise it will be as obvious as a firefly in the dark night, and it won't take long for it to be discovered by the Zero Squad. At the time, either Makoto Senju will fake his death again and escape to the real world, or he will rush to fight with Ichibei of the Hyoshobu. However, although Senju Makoto was full of thoughts, he did not show any abnormality on the surface. He was as gentle and steady as ever, as if he was the perfect helmsman leading the GOTY 13. The next moment, some sensitive Shinigami noticed that the secret garden seemed to move. Although the secret garden was outside the endless darkness unique to the Shadow World, the feeling of spatial change still could not be hidden from sensitive Shinigami such as Shifen Yuan Yorishi, Soifeng, and Kachaki Byakuya. It moved. So, is it going to hit the Invisible Empire next? Things seem to be getting more interesting. When the two spaces collide, it will become a gladiatorial arena where no one can escape, right? 2 hours. Senju Makoto estimated the distance between the secret garden and the Invisible Empire and gave an approximate time. This is the time when the secret garden and the Invisible Empire collide, and it is also that time when the GOTY 13 launches a desperate counterattack against the Holy Cross Knights. Soon, among the Shinigami present, except for Kusaka Yaru who was still rolling and playing among the flowers and green grass, the other Shinigami gradually stopped talking and began to make the final adjustments in their own ways. Suddenly, Kusaka Yaru rolled back and forth and bumped into Senju Makoto's cart without knowing it. Kusaka Yaru opened his somewhat dizzy eyes, and after seeing that the person in front of him was Senju Makoto, he subconsciously opened his arms towards Senju Makoto with an expression asking for a hug. Seeing this, Senju Makoto was also touched by Kusaka Yaru's cuteness and his originally tense heart was melted. He picked up Kusaka Yaru with both hands. After a moment, Kusaka Yaoru, who seemed to have come out of the dizzy state, bit his fingers, as if counting something, and said, "Hey, Makao, it's been a long time since I've played with Yaorai like this." "Really? Then when the battlefield is over, Yaorai will come to the first team, and I'll play with you for a few days, how about that?" Makao Senju coaxed gently. As Makao Senju spoke, he habitually touched Yaorai Kusaka's pink hair, with a hint of doting in his eyes. Perhaps, Makao Senju didn't know why Yaorai Kusaka had a special kindness and love for him from the beginning. However, Makao Senju, who was unconsciously touched by Yaorai Kusaka, also regarded Yaorai Kusaka as a sister or daughter. "Thank you, Makao." Yaorai Kusaka's response was still so sweet and energetic. But what Makao Senju couldn't see was that in the pure eyes of Yaorai Kusaka, who was held in his arms, there was a hint of reluctance and parting. Chapter 797. The Fate of the Quincy. At this moment, in the center of the Invisible Empire, Silver Frame City. In the bedroom deep inside the Ice Palace on the top floor of Silver Frame City, the leader of the Stern-Crossed Knights, Haswad, was guarding the outside. In the Stern-Crossed Knights, 4 members of the Stern-Crossed Knights, who were given the title of God's Pardon Guards by Yuha Bark, were on the highest alert in different directions. Because Yuha Bark was well aware of his own fragility and defects during his sleep, the God's Pardon Guards who were responsible for the guard work at this moment were also the most loyal and strongest group in the Stern-Crossed Knights. Leisurely Barrow, who possesses the holy text ability X all permeating. Penny the Packager, who possesses the holy text ability C enforcement. Yasking Naklaval, who possesses the holy text ability D lethal dose. Gerard Valkyria, who possesses the holy text ability M miracle, and Ishitarai calmly walked to the main entrance of the palace, looking at the members of the Stern-Crossed Knights of the God's Pardon Guards, constantly collecting information and keeping it in mind. Finally, Ishitarai's eyes were on the man standing in front of the main entrance of the palace, Yuglan Haswad, who possesses the holy text ability B World Harmony. In the past few days since joining the Invisible Empire, the more Ishitarai collected information about the Invisible Empire, the more frightened he became. Even though the Invisible Empire's first attack on the Silent Spirit Court ended in failure, there were some real monsters in the Stern-Crossed Knights who had not yet taken action. As members of the Stern-Crossed Knights, the gap between them can even be compared to the level between the captains Aizen Sosok and Road Guru Meikensei. Among them, the most unfathomable to Ishitarai is the man in front of him called Haskvald. In the intelligence gathering over the past few days, Haskvald is not only the leader of the Stern-Crossed Knights, but also has what Ythwach calls half-body. And when Ythwach seems to have entered a special sleeping state, Haskvald is also qualified to represent Ythwach in all matters of the Invisible Empire. And when Ishitarai, who is the crown prince of the Invisible Empire and nominally has a higher status than Haskvald, entered the bedroom, Haskvald raised his hand to stop Ishitarai. Ishitarai turned his eyes and said expressionlessly, "I have something to see His Majesty, get out of the way." "Ishitarai, if I were you, don't do anything." Haskvald's calm tone and eyes that seemed to clearly reflect Ishitarai's appearance made Ishitarai's heart tighten, but on the surface he remained basically calm. "What do you want to say, Haskvald?" "It's just what it means. You can't see His Majesty at this moment, and you should restrain some of your thoughts." Haskvald stared at Ishitarai in front of him and said something that made Ishitarai's heart sink. "What is your purpose in joining the Invisible Empire? Is it to inherit Ishita Sojin's legacy? Or for some other mission?" Ishitarai's face sank slightly, and he seemed a little angry, and said, "I don't understand what you want to say." And Haskvald continued to speak calmly. "Ishitarai, since you have been given the holy letter, it means that you have also drunk His Majesty's holy blood. In this way, you also represent that you have an inseparable connection with His Majesty. No, to be more precise, His Majesty is connected to all Quincy, and the fate of all Quincy has been determined from the beginning. That is to offer everything to His Majesty, your own soul and the souls of those you have killed." Ishitarai's pupil shrank, and he seemed to understand something vaguely, looking at Haskvald in front of him in horror. Haskvald's voice seemed to become a little lighter, and he spoke. "Yes, it's just as you think, the Quincy clan originated from His Majesty. The souls of the Shinigami, Hollows, and humans who died at the hands of the Quincy, as well as the souls of the Quincy themselves, will also be offered to His Majesty, becoming a part of His Majesty who needs to continuously absorb souls to see, hear, and move." At this moment, Ishitarai's breathing had unconsciously quickened a little, and he said, So, this is why the god of death slaughtered the Quincy clan 200 years ago and believed that the Quincy's extermination of the Hollows would cause the world to be unbalanced? Yes, that is the fact, and it is also that destined fate of the Quincy. Haskvald said slowly. The Quincy clan was born out of human fear of the Hollows and the instinct to fight against them, and also out of the needs of your majesty. The Quincy clan has been continuously launching wars in order to offer a large number of souls to your majesty. Even the war launched by the Invisible Empire and the 13th Gotti Squad a few days ago, the most important goal was to stir up enough killing and death, and become the help and source for your majesty to restore his true power in the future. At this moment, although Seireitei could barely maintain his calm on the surface, he felt cold all over. So, now as the Crown Prince of the Invisible Empire, you should not do anything unnecessary at this moment. Haskvald repeated the reminder again, and then blocked the main door of the palace with his eyes slightly closed. After a full moment, Seireitei, who regained his composure, suddenly thought of something and calmly retorted. But, I heard that when attacking Soul Society, His Majesty was almost defeated by Senju Cheng. Is this also part of His Majesty's plan? Haskvald did not answer Seireitei immediately without opening his eyes. Instead, he spoke after a few breaths. Among the 5 special combat powers, Senju Cheng represents the unknown. It is common sense that there are certain variables in all constants, but this does not affect the destined future. That's why, Seireitei, you shouldn't do anything unnecessary. This time, Haskvald repeated this sentence again, but Seireitei faintly understood some meaningful meaning from it. This is not just a warning, but also a reminder. Seireitei's eyes flickered, and 100 thoughts flashed through his mind. However, considering that this is the main entrance of Yuobach's bedroom, and his goal of coming here to test Yuobach's state during sleep has been achieved, Haskvald's state obviously did not want to continue the conversation. At that moment, Seireitei casually glanced at the positions of the God's Pardon guards guarding different directions of the palace, and was about to turn around and leave. Boom! The space within the entire Invisible Empire suddenly erupted with an extremely terrifying shock. Chapter 798. Attack and defense change. The entire Silver Frame City, and even the space that built the entire Invisible Empire, was shaking violently. This sudden change made Haswad's face change. Then, in addition to the god guards who forcibly suppressed their curiosity and doubts and still guarded the palace, Haswad hurriedly walked to the edge of the ice palace and looked towards the outside world. Seeing this, Seireitei followed closely behind. The moment he looked in the direction of Haswad, his pupils couldn't help but tremble. Or in other words, at this moment, countless members of the Star-Crossed Knights who hurriedly looked at the source of the vibration were all greatly shocked. At the border above the Invisible Empire, spiderweb-like cracks appeared covering half of the sky. That situation, it was as if some behemoth had hit the Invisible Empire. But, this is the Shadow World. At the moment when everyone was stunned, a huge tree that penetrated the sky and the earth drilled out from the center of the spiderweb-like crack that was about to break. It smashed the edge of space, crossed the sky, and penetrated directly into the Silver Frame City, just like a sword of Damocles hanging from the sky falling into the world, or like a Jianmu tree that penetrated the sky and the earth. What is this? Wood. Wait, look at the direction of the crack, someone has appeared. Damn it. It's the god of death. At this moment, in the sky passage pierced by the giant tree, there seemed to be endless flowers and green grass. However, with the appearance of figures wearing captain's feathers and death suits, coupled with the powerful spiritual pressure of the god of death that burst out unscrupulously, countless Quincy's changed color. Why? Why did the god of death appear here, and in this way? The impact of this scene on the Quincy's was no less than that when Li Yunlong's independent regiment did not attack Pingham County, but played a sky drop in Tokyo. Nin and Masculine, who were extremely quick to react in the Holy Cross Knights, also quickly rushed towards the sky above the Silver Frame City, aiming directly at the giant tree, trying to destroy it. As a robot, Nin instantly burst out dozens of missiles from his body, rushing towards the giant tree like a swarm of wasps. Oh, ho ho. Big Star, you should appear like a hero at this critical moment to stop the enemy. Masculine cheered while punching the giant tree with an astonishing momentum. However, at this lightning moment, among the group of figures standing at the entrance of the space, there were 2 figures who instantly turned into after images and disappeared, and at an incredible speed, they arrived first and blocked Nin and Masculine. The captain of the second team, Seireitei. Facing dozens of missiles close at hand, Seireitei's expression was like frost, and a touch of golden light flashed in her hands. Seireitei, Sparrow B. Then, among the dozens of missiles flying at her, Seireitei's figure kept shuttling back and forth, and a dense ding-ding-ding sound was heard. All missiles that Seireitei approached seemed to have completely lost their power and fell straight down. As a user of the Holy Word K information reading, Nain's electronic eyes kept flashing. Nain could clearly perceive every missile that was fired, and when Seireitei passed by, 2 overlapping B patterns would bloom on it. 2 hits kill. Nain's database already had a complete collection of Seireitei's zanpakutō abilities, including the range of ability, amplification, defects, etc. However, Seireitei's secondary kill ability can actually work on steel-dead objects. And Seireitei's speed is much faster than a few days ago. In an instant, in Nain's cold logical thinking, Seireitei's threat level was almost rapidly increasing. In just less than a breath, dozens of missiles fell powerlessly to the ground in front of the giant tree. Seireitei, wearing the captain's feather, swung her hand and stopped at the side of the giant tree, looking at Nain calmly. At this moment, the fist of S-Hero Masculine on the other side was about to hit the giant tree. Instant bang, the crackling sound of thunder sounded. Yorishishiuin, whose figure was very slender compared to Masculine, blocked Masculine's front. Masculine saw this, and his green beam-like eyes flashed a trace of cruelty, and the force of his fist was even greater, intending to smash Yorishishiuin and the giant tree in front of him. However, the moment of contact made Masculine's face suddenly change. A mere minor character wants to destroy our way to the invisible empire. Yorishishiuin burst out with a terrifying power that was completely inconsistent with her slender figure, causing Masculine's fist to almost make a series of bone-breaking sounds like firecrackers. And the huge impact force made Masculine's body fall to the ground uncontrollably at a faster speed than when it came. It only took a moment for Nain and Masculine to appear at the same time and for them to be repelled by Shifen Yuan, Yorishi and Seireitei. At the space passage opened by the giant tree, Unohana-Retsu and Senju Cheng-ge took the first step into the invisible empire without haste. Following Unohana-Retsu and Senju Cheng-ge were the death gods emitting powerful spiritual pressure. At this moment, the 13th Division of the Gotti stood in the sky. In the name of the Gotti, Unohana-Retsu's voice, which seemed to coexist with gentleness and coldness, slowly echoed in the invisible empire, and Senju Cheng-ge took over the second half of the sentence and ordered, "Destroy the invisible empire today, kill." In an instant, the figures that originally stood behind Unohana-Retsu and Senju Cheng-ge dispersed in different directions, aiming directly at the Holy Cross Knights emitting powerful spiritual pressure in the invisible empire. The only ones left behind Unohana-Retsu and Senju Cheng-ge were Kotetsuin and Yokiriza, who were in charge of wartime medical treatment. Soon, the aftermath of the battles between captains began to erupt throughout the invisible empire. At this moment, it was just like that moment. The attack on Jinglingshan by the Invisible Empire 5 days ago was perfectly reproduced in the Invisible Empire at this moment. However, the offensive and defensive have changed. Then, Unohana-Retsu and Senju Cheng-ge walked side by side on the giant tree, and walked slowly and steadily towards the silver frame city at the end of the giant tree. Senju Cheng-ge raised his eyes and looked at the ice palace on the top of the silver frame city, at Ishitarai and Haskvald, and his eyes met with Haskvald's. The stare lasted for a breath. Haskvald's expression never changed, but he turned and left, saying, "The war has begun." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 799W. Twists and Turns. The war has begun. Without the need for Yathwach or Haskvald to personally command and issue orders, the Holy Cross Knights in the Invisible Empire all moved when they realized that this was a counterattack from the 13th Court Guard Division. Completely different positions, a fate that has lasted for 1,000 years, this is destined to be a life and death fight. Some of the duels that were not completely decided in the last time in the Seireitei, the Shinigami on the side of the 13th Court Guard Division immediately found the opponent. Under the casual glance of Senju Cheng-ge, who was walking on the giant tree, part of the battle had already broken out. F. Fear Not vs. Byukaya Kachika, K. Information reading by J9 vs. Seireitei, H. Scorching Basbei vs. Churu Hitsugaya, I Steel Soto vs. Kensame Guru Mei, S. Hero Mask to Masculine vs. Yorishi Shigeda, among them, Ichigo Kurosaki and Kinpuchi Zaraki, the two with the strongest spiritual pressure in the entire group of Shinigami, were the vanguard who rushed in the direction of the Silver Frame Castle. Yoho bark, come out. Ichigo Kurosaki appeared in the sky above the Silver Frame Castle in a flash, and the short blades of the double-bladed Zanjutsu in his hands slashed horizontally, and the materialized spiritual pressure condensed in front of him in an instant, and the long sword slashed down suddenly. Crescent cross-charge in an instant, the unprecedented golden slash rushed straight to the ice palace on the top floor of the Silver Frame Castle like a cross-execution platform, and the momentum of sweeping everything seemed to wipe out all the obstacles in front of it. As the golden cross-slash approached, a member of the stern-crossed knights with messy hair, unkempt appearance, and two tongues sticking out emerged from the shadow of the ice palace, speaking in a contemptuous and unclear tone. Don't try to succeed, Kurosaki Ichigo. Then, in Kurosaki Ichigo's surprised eyes, the stern-crossed knight member did not dodge or evade, and did not make any move to reach, as if he wanted to simply rely on his body to block the crescent cross-strike. Hey, if you don't dodge, you'll die. When Kurosaki Ichigo subconsciously spoke from a distance to remind him, the crescent cross-strike that was about to touch the stern-crossed knight member was obviously twisted and deformed by itself, directly bypassing the Queen Sea in front of him, and even blocked by the ice palace behind him. Boom. The crescent cross-strike that brushed the edge of the ice palace and flew away created a large area of continuous explosions in the back. However, Ichigo Kurosaki's expression was quite unpleasant, and he didn't even understand why his attack bypassed the enemy. It's useless, useless, the Queen Sea said with two tongues sticking out, contemptuously and lazily. I'm the Holy Word ability user W. Detonienxoso. All attacks will automatically dodge me. As long as I stand here, you will never be able to reach your Majesty's bedroom. However, Ichigo Kurosaki's figure disappeared instantly, and even Wiso's eyes kept searching around, but still couldn't find Ichigo Kurosaki's location. However, Wiso's tone was still contemptuously admiring. What a fast speed! Even among the Holy Cross Knights, there are probably not many who can have such a speed. The next moment, behind Wiso, Ichigo Kurosaki's figure appeared, and a crescent moon sky strike that was almost instinctive to Ichigo Kurosaki flooded Wiso. However, just as the crescent moon sky strike was about to drown Wiso, who didn't move at all. Crescent moon sky strike twisted and deformed again, and once again perfectly bypassed Wisho's body, without causing any harm to Wisho. It's useless. Do you think the so-called attack avoidance is based on judgment by the eyes? Wisho stood there loosely without looking back and said without looking back. Of course not, it's instinct. Anything that is judged as dangerous by my instinct will not cause harm to me, such as you who were emitting amazing spiritual pressure at this moment, Kurosaki Ichigo. Kurosaki Ichigo's expression became more and more ugly when he heard this. This ability is not about how terrifying it is, but pure disgusting. Kurosaki Ichigo tried many times in a row, attacking at angles that Wisho's perception could not detect, but still failed to cause any harm to Wisho. More importantly, the large area of the ice palace where Wisho was standing seemed to be protected by Wisho's holy text ability, and all attacks would automatically bypass the opponent perfectly. Damn it, Captain Zaraki, it seems that only one person can hold the other, and the other person. When he said this, Ichigo Kurosaki's voice suddenly paused. He realized that although the two people were acting together, Kinpuchi Zaraki seemed to have no sense of direction and rushed into the Silver Frame Castle in the other direction without looking back. At this moment, Ichigo Kurosaki just saw Kinpuchi Zaraki disappear from his sight, and it was too late to even call Kinpuchi Zaraki. Only the excited voice of Kinpuchi Zaraki's laughter floated faintly from the Silver Frame Castle. Ha 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 ha, I smell the breath of a strong man, come and fight with me. Quincy. Ichigo Kurosaki. That guy, is he an idiot? At this moment, Ichigo Kurosaki's expression could not help but become a little sluggish. Even though Ichigo Kurosaki knew that Kinpuchi Zaraki was a guy who would completely ignore his teammates, he should at least understand the situation a little bit and know the direction of the target. The ice palace is right in front of him. Damn it, I can't count on that bastard Zaraki. At this moment, the strong sympathy that the two sides had developed after fighting each other in the hell of hell for several days quickly dissipated in Ichigo Kurosaki's heart. Have I really been tainted by my sympathy for such an idiot? Thinking of this, Ichigo Kurosaki quickly put aside the extra thoughts and once again focused his attention on the WUZ's Hoshu in front of him, frantically trying out various flaws and loopholes in the opponent's ability. In addition, Ichigo Kurosaki also knew what his position was, which was to clear the unnecessary obstacles in front of Captain General Unohana and Lord Senju, and open a path to Yuthwatch. And in this moment, when Unohana and Senju Makoto's attention were mostly focused on the location of the Ice Palace, and they walked step by step on the giant tree. The duel between the captains of the Gotti 13 and the Holy Cross Knights had quickly caused casualties. Captain of the 7th Division, Road Guru Kensei, lost. Chapter 800. The moment the sudden drop in spiritual pressure of Kensei Rokuma made the Shinigami scattered on different battlefields of the Invisible Empire show surprised looks. No matter what, Kensei Rokuma is a veteran captain from 100 years ago, and he also has the ability of hollowification, which is definitely a standard captain model. What's more, after all the captains have completed the spiritual superposition and the last fight in the Jingling time, after 5 days of precipitation, almost all the captains have made different degrees of progress. After all, the most significant effect of spiritual superposition on the captains is to raise the upper limit of what Aizen Sosok once said, different Shinigami have their own limits. It is precisely for this reason that Kensei Rokuma is also that first among all the captains to perform Bankai and hollowification, bursting out with overwhelming spiritual pressure to defeat the opponent in one fell swoop, in order to wash away the shame of the last defeat. Even, many Shinigami subconsciously thought that Kensei Rokuma might be the first captain to defeat the opponent, boosting morale. However, what was unexpected was that Kensei Rokurume's spiritual pressure weakened instantly. And at this moment, in a huge pit that seemed to be formed after countless storms, Kensei Rokurume, who maintained his Bankai Iron Fist severed wind and wore a rectangular 6-hole virtual mask on his face, still froze in the action of swinging his fist towards his body. A palm that seemed to be made of steel was inserted directly into the center of Kensei Rokurume's chest, and blood almost sprayed out from the gap in the center of the chest, constantly splashing onto the body of Ice Steel Kando, who was pressed under Kensei Rokurume. Kando, whose body was covered with fist marks and traces of the raging storm, looked even more embarrassed. However, Kando's eyes were still filled with a kind of calmness and disdain, and he even faintly moved the palm inserted into Kensei Rokurume's chest. Puff! A large mouthful of blood spurted out from under the mask of Rokush Kengse. The mask maintained by Rokush Kengse's void also quickly dissipated, revealing a face that was rapidly losing its color. How is it possible? In a few seconds, you endured more than 800 times of the storm bombardment, and you were not hurt at all, Kando, who was lying in the center of the deep pit, said slowly. The attack was quite powerful. If it were any other member of the Knights, they might really be killed instantly by you. Unfortunately, my holy text ability is Ice Steel, and my defensor is the best in the entire Holy Cross Knights, not to mention you. Even if you look at the entire Invisible Empire, I will not be killed by anyone other than your majesty who breaks my defensor. On the contrary, you are completely obsessed with the huge advantage and are attacking crazily. Your defensor is really vulnerable. At the end of his speech, Kando's palm inserted into Rokush Kengse's body suddenly pulled out, and actually pulled out some organs. This unimaginable heavy blow also made Rokurume Kenshi scream, and his consciousness, overwhelmed by the severe pain, fell into a momentary blank. And Kando, who was half covered in blood, flashed the cross necklace on his other wrist, and turned into a claw blade with a flashing cold light on the back of his hand, piercing straight into Rokurume Kenshi's completely defenseless neck. Prepare to hit. Then, behead him. Finally, I will demonstrate to the 13th Division of the Gotti, and let those death gods know that the Invisible Empire is not a place where they can run wild. However, at this moment, several green grasses as thick as thighs suddenly emerged from the ground around him, rolled around Rokurume Kenshi's waist and pulled back. The claw blade pierced past, almost brushing against Rokurume Kenshi's jaw, and almost pierced into Rokurume Kenshi's head. This sudden change made Kando slightly startled and then reacted quickly. During the last attack on the Seireitei, Kando had witnessed similar situations many times before, and understood that it was because Senju Makoto's zanpakutō ability covered a large area of the battlefield, and it seemed that it would automatically evacuate the battlefield and provide emergency medical treatment to the defeated friendly forces. What Kando did not expect was that Senju Makoto could still maintain this exaggerated large-scale auxiliary ability within the Invisible Empire. In less than a breath, the green grass had quickly pulled Rokurume Kenshi to a place 10 meters away from Kando. Don't even think about running. Kando leaped and caught up with Rokuguru Meikenshi in almost an instant, aiming the claw blade in his hand at Rokuguru Meikenshi's vitals again, and said, "Death God, this is the Invisible Empire, and there are not enough friendly forces to help you delay time. Do you think you can take my prey away at this speed?" However, before Kando could stab the claw blade in his hand, a flash of white light flashed by the side, so fast that Kando could not see it clearly. Kando only felt that his temple was hit hard by a hammer, and his consciousness fell into a blank for a moment, and then the whole person flew backwards almost uncontrollably. Boom, boom, boom. After Kando broke through more than 10 walls in succession, his body finally stopped. It was only at this time that Kando saw clearly what attacked him, the blade. The slender blade seemed to extend for more than hundreds of meters, and it was accurately pressed against Kando's temple. However, before Kando could see clearly, the slender blade quickly retracted back to a man who was standing next to Rokuguru Meikenshi at the moment, with a fox-like fake smile on his face. The captain of the 3rd squad, Ichimura Jin. The relevant information flashed through Kando's mind, and he quickly judged the identity of the visitor and the ability of his zanpakutō. Then, Kando couldn't help but reveal a playful smile on his face, and stood up and mocked. "So you are Jin Ichimura, the owner of the zanpakutō Divine Lance? What a pity. My holy text ability seems to completely restrain you. Even if I let you attack me without defense, that slender blade may not be able to hurt me." Really? Even though he was no longer an undercover agent, Jin Ichimura's expression was still that fake smile, making it difficult to understand his inner thoughts. As Jin Ichimura asked a question, Kando suddenly felt a strange warmth flowing down his cheek from his temple. Kando subconsciously raised his hand to touch his cheek, and then looked at his palm. His own blood. To Kando, it was strange blood. I actually bled. This guy's zanpakutō ability can actually break my defense. Although it seemed that only a tiny bit of the skin was broken, the blood that flowed out was just a superficial injury for a warrior, and Kando did not even take the initiative to use the holy text ability to strengthen his defense. However, this result still made Kando fall into a moment of shock and hesitation. It was at this moment that Ichimura Jin, who keenly caught this moment, raised his lips slightly and pointed the zanpakutō hidden in his sleeve at his eyes. Bankai. God-killing spear. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.